right. I'm recording to my computer, and I think we're good. All right, awesome. Well, cool. How is everyone doing? All right, get this going here. Okay. So some quick questions. Uh, all right. Nick said, "What are your thoughts on Vinny's post from yesterday?" So yeah, Vinny's a good friend of mine, and we were chatting about this actually before he posted it and everything. So to kind of update everyone, Meta has been talking a lot about uh, some of their um, some of their changes to AI, right? How they're incorporating AI, which makes sense because AI has maybe you've heard of this thing called AI. I mean, it hasn't really had that big of an impact on anything really. No, but I mean, obviously, it's like massive, and a lot of these tech companies, that's like their driving initiative. They want to be on top of it. And you can imagine if you're Facebook and you have a mountain of data and you want to connect advertisers and platform users and the right way at the right time and keep people engaged on the platform, like it just makes sense that they're going to leverage AI to the best of their ability. And they have a lot of really smart people and a lot of capital, lot of capital that they're pouring into that to make sure that happens. So they have every now and then they'll have an update, and they'll name it something. I think Lattice was like several months or years ago. Lattice was a while ago. And then there's other ones they have like all the different names for the way things work. Um, all that's to say the way that things are moving is that Facebook. Here's my opinion. You asked me, what my thoughts are in my opinion, the way things are moving is AI, and it will probably get that way sooner rather than later because AI seems to be just exponentially growing. And yes, I see your question, Yusuf. We'll get to you in just a minute. Thank you. Um, uh, AI seems to be just kind of exponentially getting better and better and better. So I do think that Facebook at one point will, I mean, perhaps get to the point where like they're doing a ton, right? Or what will Facebook advertising look like in 2 years and 5 years and 10 years? Um, for a while, there's been this push for broad targeting. There's been this push for letting Facebook do a lot of the heavy work in terms of connecting people with ads. There's also been this thrust for automatic placements, Advantage Plus placements. There's been this thrust for these enhancements that Facebook is pushing and basically giving more and more and more control to Facebook. Now, I do think that as time goes on, Facebook is going to get better and better and better and better at that. And at one point, that may be not just best practice, but like the only practice, like standard procedure, like pretty much the way it is you give Facebook tons of control. I mean, what will exactly that look like? I don't know. It could be something literally like you send Facebook a URL and they create the ads and everything else. I mean, who knows? Who knows exactly where it will all lead? But Facebook will get to the point eventually, I believe, and I don't think this is like controversial. I think everyone's pretty much acknowledging this. We'll get to the point eventually where they're just amazing and you leave stuff wide open and give them a bunch of control. Now the issue is we're not there yet. Or are we? Some people say we're there yet, right? I don't think we're quite there yet. We're getting there. And if we wind back the time 5 years ago, 8 years ago, there was all this. You would have your targeting, and you would set a lot of stuff manual and adjust things manually and everything else like that, so that uh, uh, you had a lot of the control as an advertiser. So we've got this kind of spectrum, this kind of timeline progression from heavy control from the advertisers to Facebook having lots of control. Where are we on that timeline? That's really, I don't think it's controversial that that is the timeline. I think the controversial part is where exactly are we right now? Some people say we're still where you take a lot of control. Other people say, hey, we're still where we're now where you give Facebook lots of control. And there were people a couple of years ago saying, hey, give Facebook lots of control, right? And so it is I think that's where the difference of opinion is. For me, I'm pretty utilitarian in terms of Facebook, not necessarily. I mean, I am principles driven, but ultimately, if it works, it works. So I think practically right now, I'm not like give Facebook tons of control. I'm not just like all the time, let's give Facebook all the control we can. I am pretty much where it's getting more and more that way, where um we're giving Facebook more and more and more control, and I think that's something where we'll continually test and tweak. I think that also manifests itself in a variety of different ways. One thing that's really interesting is Facebook, I think, has really started to understand this concept of like ad sequencing and this concept of um, that people see multiple ads and this concept that some ads are your, for lack of a better term, like your top of funnel ads and some of your bottom of funnel ads. So that the idea is these ads over here could be really contributing to a lot of results from what you're doing, but they may not necessarily have a great CPA. Right. For instance, I've seen this with like video ads. If you've got a really good video ad that has a really low frequency relative to the spend, and it may even not have a great CPA, but yet Facebook is sending lots of spend there. If you have it set up in like a CBO setup or like if it's one ad in a large ad set, or using like an Advantage Plus shopping campaign or something like that, you can see that Facebook is really sending a lot of spend to this video. And this video has a really low frequency relative to the spend, but it's not getting the best CPA, right? Maybe it's pushing really close to your target. Maybe even it's coming in above your target. And you could look at that and you could say, hey, like, why is Facebook pushing all the spend to this ad that's not doing that great? Let me turn that off. And when you do that, almost always, you'll see eventually the rest of your campaign will have a worsening of performance because what Facebook detected was that that video ad got a lot of people into the system, right? It got a lot of people engaging with your brand, watching your videos. It was that, top of funnel again, for lack of a better word, where it got people into your ecosystem where the other ads closed the deal. So if you evaluate each ad independently, just looking at the CPA and the spend and everything else, you're missing the bigger picture and you're missing, I think, the way that Facebook works now. We could do maybe more of a call on that. I've thought about that on like, optimizations and things like that. But so anyway, hopefully that answers your question, Nick. I see you with your hand raised, but let's just dive into the questions. I guess Yusuf, what question? Go ahead, unmute and let's dive in, man. What questions you have? Actually,
Yo,
before
are we
before you do that,
recording?
I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you
Oh,
real quick.
oh, good.
Before you do
Yeah, yeah.
that, let me kind of go ahead and talk to you what we're going to talk about today on the call, and then we'll get to your question. Today on the call, I'm going to be doing some troubleshooting, a troubleshooting case study. I had a situation a while ago where I had a really frustrating circumstance with an advertiser. I did eventually figure it out, and I'm going to talk about the steps that we took with that so that we can see uh, not only like what we found at that current point, not really that's the biggest deal, but the real big deal is how do you think about stuff when stuff is hitting the fan, when things are going poorly. How do you think about fixing them? How do you go about taking that process? What do those steps look like, and how do you go thinking about it? Because as a media buyer, when everything's going well, everything's easy. I mean, that's when you're like, man, I've got the best job ever, and you feel like a superstar. But you really earn your money, you really earn your stripes, and you really earn a lot of your professional expertise and your reputation when you can manage stuff when there's problems. So we're going to be talking about troubleshooting a little later on. So anyway, Yusuf, go ahead, dive in, my man. Sorry about that.
All good, all good. Okay, so I'm gonna ask this question in a way that it helps people like that are listening to the callback because I think it's like another like Mythbusters moment that we tend to get a lot. But I asked a question in the group the other day about retargeting ads, and then you kind of cleared it up and just said, dude, like for an AC funnel, don't really need to think about it too much. And the reason was because, and I've got the what you said the low ticket price point makes it harder for retargeting ads to be cost effective. And I was wondering if you could go into more detail about that for understanding.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So it it makes it harder to be cost effective because if you've got, let's just say, a $500 price point, you could spend $100 on a retargeting ad and do well, right? $100 CPA. When you've got a lower price point, number one is you're facing two factors, but are basically well similar. But number one is because your price point is so low, your CPA on cold traffic is likely going to be very low. If you're selling a $7 ebook, your price, your CPA, your cost per acquisition, in this instance, your cost per purchase, $7 a cost per purchase on a $7 product is likely going to be pretty low anyway, relative to, let's just say you were doing a high ticket service, right? You're doing like book a call, book a call or something like that, selling a 10K service. Obviously, your CPA is going to be much larger. So your cold traffic CPA is smaller, which means that it's already pretty competitive. Your retargeting has to be better than that in order to be worthwhile, right? And so the bar is set pretty high in terms of the excellence that you've got to already achieve in order to get below that CPA that you're already getting with cold traffic. That's the main that's like the main thing, because retargeting is not retargeting can be cost effective in sometimes when you've got like a large audience that has to buy a small you got a large audience that has to buy a high ticket and a small number of those people convert. When the number of people that convert is larger, you are your retargeting pool is essentially smaller. Like if you've got 1,000 people and only one's going to buy the high ticket, you've got a lot of retargeting potential. If you've got 1,000 people and like 100 of them are buying your AC funnel, then you've got a smaller retargeting pool there for already. Plus, like if it's a 10K high ticket program, maybe they haven't said no. If they haven't purchased already, maybe they haven't said no. They've just said not yet, right? Maybe they need to think about it because your consideration is a lot more for that type of high ticket product. So when you get in front of them with retargeting, maybe you can clear up some objections. You can help them along in that process because they haven't said no yet. Well, if it's a low ticket, if you're selling a $7 ebook, like how much convincing do you need to give people? It's pretty much an impulse thing. They're either yes or no. So they almost practically have said no. So you're retargeting right there, answering objections and everything else like that. Like, that's not really adding to what they need to make that leap. Most likely, they pretty much would have done it already. If it's not like they need a little push over the edge. Now, all of this is to say, it's worthwhile testing. I mean, I'm a proponent. It's the beauty of Facebook ads. Test it, right? It's relatively easy to set up these tests. So you may say, hey, our retargeting is working really well, but generally, I've just seen it not be that much worth it, right? Because of the factors that I've mentioned. Does that kind of make sense? Does that kind of explain it?
Yeah, 100%. Like it's something
Cool.
you do more for the high ticket when there's loads of people, the less people that can convert. Yeah, I'm gonna go back over the call anyway and just like write down every single word. But yeah, it definitely helps. Thank you so much.
Cool. Cool, man. Awesome. Awesome. Ravi, what's up, my man?
Hey, Leon, how are you? Good
I'm
morning.
doing wonderful. How you doing, sir?
Excited for this call. Great topic. While you were explaining about the evolution of the Facebook algo, I just thought, this may be a request for including in a course or a call, like, how, the evolution of the Facebook ads, like,
Mm,
how Alan talks about direct response marketing,
yeah.
Johnny Kennedy came and the salesmanship in the print and then came, there was all this print media and everybody was mailing, then the Facebook came and then, you know, to just to know that evolution and how Facebook evolved will be a great topic for a call or including a course or something like that. If you
Yeah.
could consider.
That'd be good. I'll put that down. The history of just kind of realizing the history of the algorithm and Facebook ads and everything
Yeah,
else.
you are the best person to do it.
Oh, I appreciate it.
You have been there like every walk
Yes.
of the
All look at
Facebook.
all this gray and this beard. Like we've seen some stuff. No, I think the algorithm has changed, and another thing too is, and this is just a little aside on what you're talking about. I mean, buyer behavior's changed. I can
Mhm.
remember, 10 years ago maybe, who bought stuff off of Facebook? Like it was pretty
That's
rare. And maybe I'm not,
yeah.
the exact timeline or whatever, really, but there was a period. I'm not good with like 2026 or 2023 was this way and 1996 was this. It all runs together for me sometimes. I'm not the best at remembering the dates, but there was a point where
Mhm.
it was strange to buy stuff off the internet off cold traffic. What's this random company that's taking me to a random web page? Now, you would go to Amazon maybe, there were places like that, but the average person wasn't really buying that much directly off of cold traffic off of the internet. What you had to do was you had to warm people up. That's where lead magnets came in, and these types of relationship building tools that you then come in and say, okay, like now we can now I understand, I believe this company, and then they get to where they're purchasing more online, right? So anyway, there's lots of stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that made this question even more interesting. Like I didn't think about the buyer behavior change with the algorithms.
Hmm.
Two of them together would be a really, really nice thing to know.
Yeah.
To know where it even goes. Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate it, Paul.
exactly, exactly. Of course,
Thank,
of course. And
thanks for that.
economics is a factor of that as well. I mean, if it gets
Yeah.
if it's getting more expensive to drive traffic, that changes things where we have to get more efficient. So I think that's really why the AC funnel is
Mhm.
the evolution where we are. Years and years ago, you would do a lead magnet, and then you would like upsell them on like a $7 product just to get something, and then you would upsell them on more. And now it can be the AC. You can go straight to cold traffic to buy a $27 product, and it's just not that weird anymore like it was a couple of years ago. So good stuff. Good stuff. All
Good
right,
stuff.
Nick, what's up, my man?
Yo, thanks for answering that first question, by the way.
Cool. Of course, man. We can geek out on this stuff. I love geeking out on this.
Yeah, kind of like on that same note, I was curious if you think it's worth uh running like a campaign to get more page likes to the page you run from.
Yeah. In some cases it could be. Rarely. Uh, I am a proponent, as I've talked about before. I think this is the compliance secrets call. I am a proponent of starting off with like running likes ad to warm up an account, not for the
Right.
purpose of better optimization, but just as a reminder. I know you know this, but just as a reminder to people, not for the purpose of optimization, but the purpose of compliance. To say, all right, Facebook, we're a good citizen. Let us just run some spin. Don't ban our account. Past that, I think rarely would I run likes ads. I think years ago, people would. I had a friend talking about dark lording stuff. He would go to like, he would start up these pages, and then he would run ads in like, India, Pakistan, stuff like that, and he would just put like a this is so dark lording. He would put like a picture of a girl in a bikini or something like that on the ad, run it to these really, really inexpensive locations, and to get a bunch of people to like the page. And then he would just like stop that, and then he would like launch his real ads, and it was kind of a way to him have like all this social proof on this page where it looked legit. And then if he ever saw anyone commenting on his ad or liking his ad or sharing it who had a name that would indicate they were from these other regions, India or Pakistan, he would just ban them. And so it was like, I don't know, it was kind of a Dark Lord thing. I don't but anyway, I think now it's seeing the number of likes on a page just isn't as big of a deal. Back then, it was really prominent. Like when you're advertising, I think it would show you like how many likes that page had. So that was a big deal. Now you pretty much have to dig around to find that. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I do think it matters though in some cases. I was running traffic for it was actually a family business, and it was a racetrack, like where cars race. And we had kind of a reputation for being like, redneck, and it was this rough and tumble, like, you go to watch a race, or no, you go to watch a fight and a race breaks out. Like that was kind of the reputation that this place would have had, which was totally
Right.
unjustified because we were very family friendly, and like it was actually like a very upstanding place and everything else like that. So in order to kind of get around that, what I did is I had a bunch of likes campaigns, or a like campaign, and I wasn't spending much. I mean, at times it was $10 a day, $5 a day, something like that. Not a lot of money, but
Yeah.
just running like that. And I ran it only to that local area because we were local business. We had a lot of people that would like our page. And now all of a sudden, when you see my ad saying, "Hey, come see our event this Saturday night," it says so and so, you could see the list of people
Right.
who liked
Yeah.
that page. Right.
Yeah.
And that kind of reinforced, like, oh, my friend from church, or the person I know from the gym, or my neighbor down the street, right? All these people like this. Maybe I'll give it a shot. So I think that social proof mattered. I don't think that I would do that for like a direct response type of offer nationally, just because is it going to matter, But I think for local stuff, like if you're running ads for a local restaurant or something like that, I could see there
Well,
being a place for that.
I was kind of curious, like in terms of like if it plays into your quality score at all, like your trust with Facebook, because I know that's getting more important. And like I've seen like if I run engagement ads for certain campaigns, they'll perform a lot better. And I've noticed that even more so recently.
Hmm.
So I was curious if the same thing kind of applied to the actual page itself.
Yo, that's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I think that that would be an interesting test. I don't know. That's a really good point. I I think that, your page quality, like your engagement is one thing, but there's so much that goes into that, right? Like uh, do you respond to messages in a timely manner? Do you one thing too, like your the reviews you get from people and uh, do you have good products? Does your stuff ship on time? Which, I mean, obviously for most of our offers, internet stuff wouldn't matter.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, that could there could be something to that. I wouldn't worry too much about it myself, but there, I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question. That's something if you wanted to test it, let me know how it goes.
Word, I will. And I just have one more quick question.
Of course, man.
If I'm launching, I think you're not supposed to do this, but I'm in one ad account, right? I'm in my main ad account, and I have two different domains that I use. Um, if I've been using one domain for a while and then like add a campaign with a different domain, does Facebook kind of slap that a little bit?
No, it shouldn't be an issue. If it's the
Okay.
same business, right? If it's the same product and everything else, just different domains.
Oh, by slap, I mean in terms of I just noticed there's way higher CPMs on this second domain.
Well, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. So in terms of can you run multiple domains, like that's not a compliance issue.
Right.
As long as they're the same business, that's not a compliance issue. In terms of CPMs, yeah. Facebook, I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. Facebook is big data, right? People will ask like, does this matter? Does this matter? Does this matter? And the answer is yes. If you can think about it, chances are it matters because Facebook is the definition of big data. They look at trillions probably of data points between your ad account and your ads and people who've engaged with it before and people the advertiser or the person that you're going out there to advertise to get in front of. So I
Yeah.
could see that where one domain absolutely would have a higher CPM. Now, I would tell you, I would not evaluate CPM in a vacuum. I would look at my
Right,
cost
right,
per
right. Of
click,
course.
right? My cost per purchase and see
Of course.
if that matters. Sometimes I'm working with one account now where like every time our CPM gets low, that's actually a bad thing because it's a book a call
Seen
funnel.
that as well. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we get much lower quality people into it. We may
Mhm.
get great cost per click, but sometimes that doesn't translate into people on the back end. So all that's to say, don't evaluate CPM in a vacuum, as you know. But yeah, the domain absolutely it could impact things. If Facebook looks at it differently. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Appreciate it.
Cool, man. Of course, of course. Steven, what's up, my man?
How you doing, my guy? Sorry, I'm not on
Great.
camera. I'm in the
It's
gym right
okay.
now on the treadmill. But something about the retargeting. There's a few extra pieces. I've run it this way for a long time. Um, it's something I call the magazine model because you're using content plus 28-day windows on Facebook engagement campaigns to keep the most engaged, most relevant people on your content month over month for like fractions of a penny per engagement. And so you can take the things that they would need to know leading into one of your offers and run that as simple content. You can recycle the content as text versus still image plus text versus a video and just recycle it over and over again on the page and just run simple low dollar page post engagement ads to those. And there are so many audiences like people that have engaged with the page, people that have engaged with the post, people that are in your email. Anybody that's engaged with the last 28 days, they're still within the window of intent because they've shown interest. And so you continually recycle those people
Hmm.
and keep your page score up, low ticket, $7 to $27 offer and flood people through that. But the next step is something like $1,000 offer, where it's
Hmm.
like a community or a done with you kind of course plus community. And then there's a higher ticket beyond that, like an agency style or a done for you or something. And so what happens is by combining everybody that's engaged for the last 28 days and everybody that's come in on the low ticket thing, all you're doing is retargeting the people for that $1,000 mid-level high ticket number,
Hmm.
and the economics finally make sense
Yeah, no,
because
that's it.
you don't have to recycle most of that. You don't have to recycle most of that profit into the actual offer you're trying to sell. You can recycle it back into acquisition and still keep gigantic margins and have that mid-level pay the financing for scale of the initial throughput and gaining intent top of funnel.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And that's where retargeting, I think, plays a lot. You can use retargeting to move people. There are times where retargeting is appropriate, like you're talking about, to move people around to different points in the funnel. So one thing could be like you mentioned, I see your question here in the chat. Like, what if you took people who purchased your low ticket offer and you retargeted them to, book a call page for your high ticket? Absolutely, that would be something to test, right? Or even if they don't purchase your low ticket, you could still if they visit the sales page, that's something you could test out. Well, let me just take you to a webinar that takes you to book a call. There's lots of opportunities like that to move people around in your funnel, which is different from what I was talking about earlier, which is just like, hey, let's just keep taking people to purchase our front end, purchase our low ticket. Then also,
there's one more element I wanted to add to that, because we have Charles dropping in answer about Google. Here's something a lot of people don't realize right now, because a lot of us are focused on Facebook ads, but not as much on Google ads. We talk about segmenting the top of funnel. What people don't realize is that 40% of Google searches right now are voice searches versus the old janky keyword only kind of things. So a massive amount of traffic for Google is long tail questions. And there's a couple of ways you can look it up. I usually use Answer the Public and Keywords Everywhere together. And I've talked about this before, but it allows you to look at any niche and look at the questions people are asking, what the search volume is, what the competition is. And I use those long tail phrases, even to like a simple YouTube video with an explainer, and you're paying pennies to get somebody in. And honestly, having like your product or offer at the end of that, almost like you're running an advertorial, when I've done that, I've noticed cost per conversion at a fraction of what the meta ads are, but I can't run them at the same scale. So I usually can run the scale on the Google Ads side and just flood the initial top of funnel with more people to retarget that way too.
mm-hmm.
So using the platforms together.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great way to use the platforms together. Like set up I mean, that's pretty much like the branded search and kind of what you're talking about on Google, like works really well with the top of funnel awareness you're raising on Facebook. Really good synergy there. And to get back to something really quick before we move on and get to your question, Angela, I see you here. But there is a retargeting strategy where you could say, all right, let me kind of have like this omnipresent content strategy where someone comes to my website and over the next 30 days, like they're going to repeatedly see all these different videos in their feed. And that doesn't take a lot of money, right? It takes a couple dollars a day, but the benefit is like you just stay top of mind for those people. And that's really good for, if you're selling a higher ticket service, if you're selling a lot of these other, if you've got an ecosystem that they're going to enter, right? That's really good to kind of have that. I heard someone call this, like it was something like manufactured fame or something that's probably not that, but like that's the idea. You can kind of hack Facebook in a sense to stay top of mind for people. So awesome. You good, Steven?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool, man. Angela, what's up?
Hey, Lauren, can you hear me?
I can. How are you doing?
Cool. I'm good. I'm sleepy, but I mean, fighting.
Well, good. I'm glad you're here. What questions you got?
I have two questions. The first one is like, your scaling process for ads, and also like what calls I can watch where you go in depth there.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm getting like daily sales on my front end offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to like put more spend on it. Because just like the front end alone, like without the upsells or the bumps yet, is like very close to break even. So
Sweet.
I want to put more money there. And I want to know like your process for scaling, like how long I should wait before I like double my ad spend, if I should even do that.
Yeah.
And
Check out the call I did, I think last week, where we talked about just a basic kind of AC funnel account structure. But what I do generally is I'll just kind of have separate ad sets that I'm testing. I'll raise the budgets of those independently. Then kind of the next step that I'm incorporating most often is an Advantage Plus shopping campaign, or otherwise known, I just call it an ASC. Take a lot of your winning ads that you found in testing, get the post ID from those, and run those post ID ads in an Advantage Plus shopping campaign. With those two right there, you can get a lot of scale, right? Past that, we can explore all sorts of stuff like some manual bids, and that's where you can set up some. I may do a call on manual bidding. I was thinking about this. There's approaches to take. There's kind of two general approaches to take with manual bidding. One is where we kind of have like these bid tiers where we're setting up overbidding in a sense to kind of get really good quality tiers of traffic. And the other is where we maybe set up just like one big kind of almost a CBO campaign with a couple different ad sets in it for different audiences. And we have like one bid on that and we get kind of some volume at just that one stable bid. I would tell you though, with scaling, here's the way I think about scaling, right? Like a lot of people think about scaling is like, what buttons do I push in Facebook to really take it to the next level? And there are things you can do to be sure, right? So you can do some things that matter, but really the difference in scale, most of the time, it does not come down to you've pushed these magic buttons in Facebook. More often than not, it comes down to you've got really good ads, you've got a really good offer, you've got really dialed in pages. I think about it like a race car. People will say scaling, it's like, how do I get my car to go 200 miles per hour? And the best way to do that is you dial in everything, like one of these race cars you'll see on, TV or something, right? You dial in everything. You have good tires, you have good transmission, you have good shocks, it's aerodynamic, you've got an amazing engine and brakes and everything else. And once you've got all these pieces into place where it can handle that, then it's just a matter of slamming the gas. It's very much the same with scaling. Once you've got really good ads, once you've got a really good offer, once you've got really dialed in economics, once you've got wonderful sales pages and great conversions and email backend, you've got a backend to handle all of your your customers that you're getting in, so you can maximize their lifetime value. Then it's like hitting the gas is really not that hard. But anyway, all that's to say, what I would do, go back, check out the last call I did. I would start with just testing different ads, kind of like I've done, scaling up those ad sets as you can, as budget allows, and then try an Advantage Plus shopping campaign. Those would be the two things I would start right off kind of be my first approach at scaling, if that makes sense.
How many days do you wait before like you double your ad spend typically, where it's like not shocking Facebook too much?
Yeah, so generally I wouldn't just straight up double it, right? If I'm working in an environment where I'm doing a live promotion or I've got some urgency, well, then I might be more aggressive, double it, things like that. But if it's evergreen and I don't really have any reason to hurry, I would err on the side of being much more conservative, particularly if you know that this is a new level of scale for you, and particularly if you're pushing up close to your KPI. The more margin I've got for my KPI, like if my AOV is $100 for the sake of round numbers, and I'm comfortable spending at break even, and my CPA is $30, I know I've got a lot of margin before I get up to that $100 CPA, which is kind of my max cutoff. It's a different thing if $100 is my maximum CPA and I'm at $95, right? That handles a lot of your pacing of scaling. But what I would generally do is I would look at it, every 2 days and increase it by 20%. That's probably the way I would go. And I would look at, okay, how's it worked in the past week? How's it looking in the last 3 days? How's it looking in the last day or two? And I would want to see that performance has held up. That's generally the way I would go about it. That's pretty conservative, and you could probably take it more aggressively. But if you're not in a hurry, I would generally, I would say I would like that stability to take it a little slower.
Okay, take it slow.
Cool.
Got it.
Yeah,
My
that's
second
that's what I would generally do. I mean, sometimes you have clients, and I know you might be running your own stuff, but like if you have clients that are like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, you could be more aggressive, but you just know it's going to be more volatile, and that's just kind of the trade-off there. But if it were my money and I'm not in a hurry, I would, take it a little slower.
Yeah, I'm usually the one that's like, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Yeah. Well, you could try it. I mean, you could try. I would start off maybe 20% every 2 days. And if you want to, you could you can maybe get even a little more aggressive than that. And I think you can get more aggressive the lower your budget is. So for instance, if you're $100 a day, you might be able to crank it up to 150. Not a big deal. If you're at $10,000 a day, going to 15,000, which is the same, percentage increase, that's a bigger deal, right? So the lower you are at your current budget level, you might be able to kind of go ahead and do it.
Got it. My second question is because Nick is being such a bully. He wouldn't like tell me what you said about like Vinny's post like
Oh,
yesterday, and I'm
yes.
wondering about like the Facebook AI and like I have ads that have a lower CTR, but like there's more spend there. You mentioned something about this last time, but it didn't quite register. So like I'm kind of wondering about that.
Yeah, yeah. So we were talking earlier basically about AI, right? With Facebook's changes in AI and how does that affect the way we run ads? And that was kind of like how we got into talking about that, where eventually Facebook is going to take more and more and more control. They're just going to be smarter. But we may not be to that place yet is kind of the debate, like how much control do you give Facebook versus how much do we still want to do things manually? And there's different opinions. Some media buyers say give Facebook a lot of control. Some people say absolutely don't. I'm kind of more of a little more control to Facebook, but not quite crazy. And I'm just going to like test it out and see because there's different accounts, different offers, different situations. But what I would say is like a lot of times you can be in a scenario kind of like I described earlier, where let's just say you have an Advantage Plus shopping campaign. So you have essentially one campaign, one ad set, and you've got 12 ads in it, let's say. And all these ads are tested winners, right? So in your Advantage Plus shopping campaign, all these are tested winners that have done well. Well, let's say you've got $1,000 a day that you're running to that campaign. What you may find is that, hey, I've got this video that is soaking up all of the spend. Facebook is sending a lot of the spend to this one video. It's getting $950 a day or more, right, in spend going to this one video. But when I look at the metrics, when I look at the CTR, the CPA, right, cost per purchase, it's not really looking that great. Why is Facebook doing that? Why are they sending a bunch of traffic to this one video? And what it is that Facebook has figured it out. Facebook knows they don't just look at ads in isolation. They look at your ecosystem of ads. And Facebook has figured out that this ad is generating a lot of interest that your other ads then capitalize on. So what'll happen is when people watch this video, Facebook's figured out, oh, when I show them this other ad, maybe the next day, I get a lot of purchases. So Facebook's figured that out, and so they'll put a lot of spin to this video because it's essentially functioning as a real top of funnel video. And when that happens, what you'll notice is that the primary metrics on that ad might not look that great. The primary metrics on your other ads will look really good, but what's really going on is they're working like a team. And this video ad is generating everything else that these others capitalize on. So, of course, its metrics alone might not look great, while these metrics look really good because these are essentially inflated because they're capitalizing off of the interest that was generated by the video. If you then say, look, why is all the spend going to this ad that's not doing good? I'm going to turn it off. Almost always, and there I could do a call on this. Sometimes it's not always true, but almost always you're going to see your overall results get worse. And after, a day or two or three or four, when those kind of impressions for the video kind of wear off, you'll see your CPA in general rise and you'll be like, hey, like what's going on? These ads were doing great. Now they're not. And it's because you're looking at the ads in isolation rather than looking at them as in kind of an ecosystem like that. So that's what we were kind of talking about. Does that make sense?
To simplify, basically, it's like the foreplay before the main event is that specific ad that's not looking so great, but it's like lube, basically.
That's
And
one
like,
way of putting it. Yeah, sure. You want to, if that's a simplified analogy that works for you. Yeah.
yeah.
Where it's a sequence of ads. It's a pattern, right? And we could do more calls on optimization and leveraging that and understanding it. But basically what I described is pretty much 90% of it. Cool.
Got it. Okay.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, we can dive into our call for today. Thanks for all those questions. We spent a good bit on that. I always love getting those questions. So let me go ahead and bring this up. All right. Oh, that's how I do that. That makes sense. Share my screen. All right. So here we do. Here we go. Here we go. Let me go ahead and move. All right, everything back here. Get zoom out of the way. Troubleshooting case study. All right, let's dig into this. First of all, before we get into that, we're going to get into this in a minute, where I'm going to talk to you about kind of a frustrating client experience I had where we were just, I was pulling my hair out, but it was a good learning experience and a good chance to show you troubleshooting in action. I thought this would make a fun case study. But first, let me get to your weekly tactical appetizer. This is also a little troubleshooting. You know, we were talking earlier, it worked out, Stephen. We were talking about video views and how a lot of people may set up campaigns to go out and get video views. So part of this popular strategy is to have a cold traffic campaign where you'll put out videos and you'll optimize for video views and you'll put that out there. And then when people watch a certain portion of the video, that creates an audience where you can retarget them with your offers. And this works really well, say, for instance, for local businesses. If you've got a local landscaper, you could put out videos about here's some landscaping tips or things that your audience might be interested in. And by virtue of watching your video, they kind of, in a sense, have raised their hand and said they're interested in landscaping. They're maybe interested in your services. And then you can retarget those people and stay in front of those people and stay interactive with those people. And that's a lot more. Yeah, it is, Stephen. It is the one we talked about on DM. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But that's oh no, not this one. The next one, the troubleshooting one. But anyway, so I'll get into that strategy, another point. But the point is, video views. I was working with video views. If you optimize for video views, you got to be kind of careful how you do it because you can run into some problems. So I was helping a media buyer friend of mine. He's kind of in a rough spot and he's got all these accounts to manage. So I was like, hey man, let me just kind of help you out. Let me share some of your workload. And the account had been in a really rough spot. They couldn't crack it. They weren't really profitable. He's trying to figure out a way forward. And so he had thought, let me just try this video view strategy because let me just throw things out and see what kind of works. So he was walking me through the data and showing it to me. Well, let me show you some of the data right here. Now this is blurred out for client confidentiality. But if we take a look at it, what we see here, they had spent, this is lifetime, not a ton of money, but a trickle of spent. I think it was basically maybe like $60 a day that they were running this, almost $1,000, and had gotten really incredible results in terms of these through plays. I mean, a penny. So think about this, like for $1,000, you have 77,000 people who watched a through play is like 15 seconds of your video. Right, this was a 53-second video. So a through play is someone watched 15 seconds or more of your video, or if your video is shorter than 15 seconds, if they watch the whole video, right? But so the point is, with this being a 53-second video, if they've watched 15 seconds, that's amazing for like a penny. So you've got these people that are really interested, these videos that are performing really, really, really well to get people interested, building these really high quality audiences, these video view audiences, like, oh, this is just amazing. Now take a look in particular at this hook rate and this hold rate. Now you may remember that from when we discussed this in the call on diving into the data. We talked about custom metrics, and these are two very, very common custom metrics: hook rate and hold rate. The hook rate is the percentage of people who have watched a video for the first 3 seconds. Basically, did it stop them scrolling? Did it hook them in? And the other, this right here, is what percentage of people make it to 15 seconds, basically to this through play right here. What percentage of people make it there? And this is absolutely incredible. This is really, really, really strong. Like normal hook rates are like 25%, 30%, something like that. Like if you get a 40% hook rate, that is like a banger video for the hook rate, to stop it. And then your hold rate, you're talking about like if you can get 10%, right? If you get 15 or 20%, that's amazing. You get 10%, that's strong, right? So to have 90 some percent, now granted, this is going to be for video views. So it may be slightly inflated anyway. Like if you're optimizing for purchase, your video views may be a little different than, these metrics might be a little different than if you were doing video views. But the point is, like, this is really good. So my media buyer friend was kind of like, man, I'm running these videos top of funnel and they're generating all these audiences, and I'm really hoping this will work because these videos are crushing. Now, if we dig in a little further, we can take a look at the video performance. Now, again, I have this, blurred out to protect the client, right? But if you go to the ad level, and this is where like you have a picture of the video thumbnail and the ad name, it's got this little, you see edit, duplicate, but you can mouse over where it says view charts. And when you do that, you can pull up this graph right here. This is really interesting to do on video ads. What this will actually show you is an average kind of watch rate, and you can see how people are hanging around your video and where they're falling off and everything else like this. So what we can see here is that this is 10,000 plays of this particular video. So this is just one ad, I think, of 12. Average play time's 38 seconds you can see right here, the video length is 53 seconds. So average play time of 38 seconds is really, really, really strong. Hook rate of 92%. Now this hold rate, ignore that. Facebook's definition of hold rate here is different. Hold rate for them is how many people make it to the very end, but still 21% to the end. This is incredible. So to see this engagement, and for the life of me, I don't know why it goes up, right? That doesn't make sense. I think that's just Facebook's data anomaly or something. But what this shows you is, of the impressions, you've got maybe, it loads in slowly or something. You get 100%, and you see it holds interest at basically 100% from like the beginning all the way to, far into the video. It's amazing how people are interested in this video and continue to watch it. And I'm just like, wow, like, we were remarking that that's incredible, incredibly strong results. Well, sometimes when things look too good to be true, it's because they are too good to be true, right? So things are looking good, almost too good. So I was curious, like, what could be going on? Is there something funky going on in the back end to cause this, right? Or is it just that these videos are amazing and the targeting is amazing? What do you think it is? So I will tell you, this is cold traffic. I think he had he might have had some interest and some lookalikes that he was testing, but this was not retargeting traffic that he was going to. This was cold traffic. Let me ask you this. What do you think could be a reason why these videos would be looking so amazing? Why do you think we could be seeing these amazing stats? So go ahead, pop it in the chat or raise your hand, or we can have kind of quiz time here. Kayan said placement. People just leave it running. So check your placements. Old people were being targeted. Yusuf said that's a curiosity clickers, entertainment clickers. Yeah. So Yusuf said old people were being targeted, so they didn't know how to click off. Really, really, really good theories, right? And Yusuf, yours, that's intriguing. I can break down at some point the age, but what I thought is, let me just take a look at the placements, right? Because something kind of seems weird here. Where is this video playing? I was actually thinking, like, is it getting a lot of play maybe on Instagram or Facebook? Like where, what's going on? Or let me look at the placements, what's going on? And so I did a breakdown by placements. Now, what do you guys see there, right? This is aggregated for all of the spend for these video views, sorted by most spend. And what do we see? You're right, Ken. Yep. Placements, right? Audience Network rewarded video had $788 of spend, whereas all this other stuff was a trickle. And there were a few more under this that I didn't put on here that were less than 75 cents, right? So negligible. But what do we see? The overwhelming majority of views came from this Audience Network, and 1 cent through plays, whereas look at the cost here. You want to look at your in-stream or your Facebook feed, 18 cents. So where you would normally think you get high quality people, you watch it in the feed or whatever, 18 cents. So very different. And we look at this was the hook rate, I think. I should have put the header on there. 99% hook rate here, but look at the feed, 23% hook rate. So that's really not that great if we were to kind of look at it that way, right? So everything is going to the Audience Network, and it's this idea of a rewarded video. Now, what is a rewarded video? let's just say you're playing a game or you're scrolling on a site or something like that, and before you can continue playing the game, they say, "Hey, we want you to watch this video," right? It's like ads that are placed. Like that's how they, I'm sure you guys have seen this, right? Like you watch an ad before you can proceed forward. Well, guess what? That's exactly what you got. You got to watch an ad before you go forward. So they're watching this ad because they're essentially forced, not because they're great, not because they're interested in the video, right? They're not interested necessarily in the content of the video. They're watching it because of just the nature of the placement. They have to watch this before moving on. Now, let's take a look again at those video metrics uh, and look at this. Remember, we talked about this breakdown. You can see it right here, at 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Well, where this drop off is, if you mouse over there in Facebook, you can see that is exactly at 30 seconds. Exactly at 30 seconds. And bang, steep drop off. So what is happening is these people in Audience Network are basically forced to watch 30 seconds of this video before moving on and playing a game or doing whatever else they want to do. And as soon as it gets to the point 30 seconds in where they can skip the ad, they're slamming that skip button, right? And then boom, that's where you get this precipitous drop off. All right. So what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is be careful with automatic placements if you're optimizing for video views, right? Now, Facebook hasn't done anything wrong, right? Like a lot of people will say, oh, this is Facebook scamming you. This is Facebook cheating you. No, Facebook is doing exactly what you've asked it to do. You've said, give me people who will view this video to 15 seconds. That's what a through play is. You said, give me the maximum number of through plays of 15-second video views at the lowest cost. And that's exactly what they've done. So you are at fault. You have set up an ecosystem. You have set up the environment where when Facebook gives you what you've asked for, you get these video impressions to Audience Network that are basically not that great. Now, here's why that can possibly be a bad thing. Number one, you're paying for them, right? But now all of a sudden you're retargeting audiences when you're turning around to retarget those video views. If you did have someone who watched it on the feed that watched it because they were really interested, that could have scrolled past but kept watching it because they raised their hand essentially and said, I like this, they're getting drowned out by all of these Audience Network people now who are lower quality. So that your whole video view retargeting strategy has just messed up now, and you've poisoned that well, so to say, with a bunch of low quality traffic that probably doesn't care anything about you or your offer. So with that in mind, we got any questions about this? Let's go ahead. We can geek out a little bit on this before moving on to the next troubleshooting. I did see some questions. Angela said, do you need to control the placements? So the key here is we were optimizing this media buyer was optimizing for video views. So I think that is important to understand. If we were optimizing for purchases, if we said, Facebook, give me buyers, I don't think you would have had all those impressions in Audience Network, because those impressions in Audience Network wouldn't have bought, and then Facebook would have deprioritized those and moved on and probably put most of it in the feed where the buyers were. So I think, to answer your question, Angela, controlling the placements really depends on what you're asking Facebook for. It depends on your optimizing event. If you're asking for purchases, I don't think it's as big of a deal. But in this case, if you're trying some sophisticated strategy where you're using traffic, or you're using video views in this case, or maybe even engagement or reach or some of these other optimizing events, then yes, placements is something to definitely keep an eye on. All right, other questions. Steven, what's up, my man?
Hey, just to add to what you were just saying, because I know that both of us have experience with this little funny business from way back before the AdLeaks days, like 10 plus years ago. Every time I've ever done this, if you want to use video views or page post engagement at top of funnel, but especially with video views, the target KPIs I've always run to get like strong metrics and better retargeting audiences that then will convert to purchases is use newsfeed only, and you're looking for sub 3 second video view, or sorry, sub 3 cent video views. That's always been like, if I can get a video to move on video views and my through play is the 15 seconds, if I can get them below 3 cents, I know I've got a video that's going to crush, and people are actually going to be better lead quality, so to speak, for the next set of the campaigns.
Mhm.
But it's always news feed only. Don't go right side. Don't go in stream.
Yep.
Just news feed only.
News feed
That's
only.
the only way I've ever gotten it. That's the only way I've ever gotten it to work.
Yep, news feed only if you are optimizing for video views. Yep, absolutely, because you can force Facebook to go to that higher quality engagement there, where the engagement is actually a signal that matters and not just a signal that I wanted to get on with my game, right? So
yeah, one other thing about videos to get more to get better views and throughput, something that you it's so subtle you may not notice it, but with the advent of TikTok and so many videos with captions on screen, when I was doing work at scale with performance golf, every single video when we had a face on the screen, and at the bottom we had just a simple background, like a white background behind the text at the bottom of the video, so they could clearly read it without getting the text lost on the video itself. We always had better performance on every single video, whether it was a top of funnel video or it was a VSL or something like that. When we made the text very clear so that people could read the video, we got way better audiences and way better engagement and way better metrics for it. So something to keep in mind.
Always invaluable, Stephen. Thank you. Ravi asked, makes me wonder, what is the use case for rewarded video placement? Yeah. So, I mean, Facebook's just trying to expand their inventory, right? Like they've kind of maxed out their user base in a sense, and they're trying to, of course, always get more and of course, preserve what they do have. But at some point it gets to where, like, if you really want to grow, it's hard to just add more users. So they're trying to add more inventory, add more ads here, add more ads here. So this is where Audience Network, I think it's probably just them trying to find more inventory, not necessarily saying, let's come up with, we've got this idea for a need and let's create a solution to that need for advertisers. I think it's more of, hey, we could put ads here and make more money. Like, I think it's purely them just trying to find more inventory. So Audience Network is not where you really have a strong, there's not a lot of strong use cases for Audience Network. You've got to be really careful too with any sort of like, a lot of times stuff just doesn't get a lot of play in Audience Network, right? If you're optimizing for purchases, it just won't go there and it won't work that well. I've seen it work as well sometimes. I don't know why it works well sometimes and not others. And when I say well, I mean a good CPA, not a good volume. I've never seen like a really good volume, but I have seen acceptable CPA to where I leave Audience Network as part of it. But what could be a use case? It could be like people mentioned, like I think Angela said, branding, right? Like if you just want to get out there and you want to get in front of people and you're okay with getting in front of lower quality people, the same reason you have TV commercials or whatever, a branding play. So I think it's a very, very minimal use case for a lot of the applications we have, but that's just generally what you could potentially use it for. And really, I don't think that it's a big deal. It's not, if you're optimizing for purchase, I think most of the time it takes care of itself. Facebook isn't going to cheat you. Facebook is will try to get you what you ask for. But again, it's just something to keep in mind when you've structured the system and you're asking for video views and you've let Audience Network as placement, you could set it up to where you bit yourself. So just something to think about there. All right, we'll move on. Here's our kind of main course for today. Have you ever seen those memes? I thought about trying to like make one real quick, but like it'll show a picture of a guy who's like 80 years old. And it'll say something like, media buying isn't stressful at all. I'm 25 and I feel great, right? And I'm sure you maybe seen versions of that meme. Well, it's easy to be a media buyer when everything's running smoothly. But it's when stuff gets, the waters get choppy, when stuff hits the fan, when things are going crazy, right, Kian? This gray beard came from somewhere. It came from my kids and also the Facebook media buying. I'm like, honestly, a lot of people are really cool and non-stressed about this stuff. I get uppity. Like, I might not be built for all of it entirely. I get too into it. I check my accounts like multiple times a day. And anyway, so it's easy when everything's running smooth, but when stuff goes wrong, a lot of times that's where you get to earn your money. That's where you get to prove your worth, and um, and you get to show a client that you're to be trusted, right? When you can have a difficult situation, you can navigate that and you can solve it. Not only is it a fun thrill because it's like it's a problem that I solved, but that's how you earn your stripes, right? This is what separates, I think, the good media buyers from the bad media buyers a lot of times is when stuff goes wrong, what do you do? How do you troubleshoot it? Well, here is a troubleshooting case study. This was an ongoing client that I'm working with. Excuse me, I still have a cough drop because I do have a little bit of a lingering sore throat as I'm talking a lot. But this was an ongoing client that I'm going to be running low ticket for. I've run multiple funnels, and this is one of the funnels they wanted me to drive some traffic for. I was driving traffic to a live virtual event. I'd done some live virtual events with them previously. This particular one we did back in the fall of last year. And we got leads for $3.24. So that just kind of puts things into context. In meeting with them, they wanted to do $4 as a max cost per lead, and they wanted a $15,000 budget. This is going to be spread out over, about 3 weeks to promote, right? So not a ton of money, but it was, $4 with. So anyway, not a ridiculous amount of spend, but for this funnel right here, I think they were hesitant to blow a bunch before they saw kind of how it would turn out. They were partnering with some other people, but it was $15,000 for a $4 max cost per lead for this promotion. So I remember I said I'd done this in the fall, right? So I used basically the same creative that had worked well for the previous event. Basically the same audiences, same copy, right? Because a lot of it, like I did make some subtle changes because they did change some of the messaging a little bit. But the changes I made, I don't think really had any impact on how the ads would perform. So I was pretty optimistic that I've run a lot of their stuff, and I kind of know about where we should be in terms of cost per lead for something like this, or some of their webinars that we've run for. So I queued up the ads to go live on a Saturday morning. That was actually just when we finally got it. I worked with a developer to get pixels installed, and it took them a little while to get that done, but then I tested it, tested the pixel with Pixel Helper. It works. Okay, we're good. Made sure everything was good, and then queued it up to go live on a Saturday morning just because needed to kind of get going on this and start kind of dipping our toes in the water and let's test. And the way I like to do these things, let's start off pretty simple, maybe $200, $300 a day, really light, kind of see how we're going, and then kind of scale up over time with figure out from our tests kind of what's working, not working, and scale that up. So we're kind of heading into the live promo with a lot of momentum. Also, a lot of times, if it's a live event that's like 3 weeks away, your cost per registration, I found, is going to probably improve as you get closer to the event sometimes, because it's like more top of mind. It's just right there. It's who's going to register for something 3 weeks away that's a long time away. Anyway, I generally the plan was to start off slow, kind of ramp up into it. Now, I didn't really look at it on Sunday. Or excuse me, I didn't look at it on Saturday. I launched it on Saturday morning. I didn't really look at it on Saturday because there's delayed attribution. And maybe I did look at it, but I didn't put too much stock in anything. I didn't do anything because there's delayed attribution, which means that it may only show, let's say, 50% of your leads have come through. So it may look really bad, but then if you wait for all the delayed attribution, it's like, okay, it wasn't as bad as it looked. So after I got back from church on Sunday, I said, let me go check to see how this account is going. And these were my results. 10 website leads at $27 each, which is, again, $4 max cost per lead. Now, the way these things normally work with Facebook is the more you spend, the more you would expect your CPA to rise. In this case, your cost per lead, your CPL, the more you'd expect that to rise. As you scale, it gets more expensive. So if I'm only spending this right here at the beginning, this trickle of spend, and I already have $27, if I were to scale this up and spend the $15,000 that they had budgeted, you'd be looking at $50 leads, $100 leads. It would just be ridiculous. So I'm just like, what is going on? Now, okay, so $4 is our max CPL, and I was using the same ads and audiences that had done well a few months ago. I didn't think this was like, because you can do that a lot of times. If there was a live promo back in October, and we're doing this again. I think this was like February. You can run the same ads. It's not like people are going to remember, oh yeah, I saw this ad and let me skip it because ad fatigue at that point really doesn't exist. So the stuff that worked before, almost certainly is going to perform similar way again. So, but this is looking really bad. So, what do we do? All right. So I decided to duplicate it. I realized that I put in the wrong screenshot here. This is still the original screenshot, but I duplicated it on that Sunday. I gave it, $50 a spend. It didn't work well. I turned it off. It was about the same cost per lead. I turned it off. I gave some time for delayed attribution to catch up and, maybe looked at it late Sunday night, maybe Monday morning, and it was still bad, still horrible. So again, let me ask you guys, what should I try now? Like, what do I do? How do we proceed forward? How do we troubleshoot this? Go ahead and chime into the chat. What would you do? New pixel. All right. Go home. Yes. That could be it. Give up and quit. Robbie said, look at your target audiences. Yeah. Look at your targeting. So you could, put it on Lauren's reading offers call. That's a great question, Stephen. What if that was going to be a month away? And the thing is, there's pressure for this. Like I talked about earlier, things being stressful, it's like, this is a live promo. Like we gotta go. Like I don't have 2-3 weeks to sit around dealing with this. And not only that, but the more time goes by, the more I'm going to have to spend to get up to that $15,000 limit, which means the more that probably my CPA is going to go higher than it would if it was spread out evenly. So the heat was on. So I said, Kian, no, they weren't in person. It was a virtual event, right? So it was I should have specified that. Yeah, lead for a virtual event, which is why they were such inexpensive leads. $27 for an in-person event would probably be really good. But it was a live virtual event. So not in person, but live virtual event. So what I thought is, I don't think it's the creative. It could be. I don't think it's the copy. I don't think it's, I should mention things were very similar on their end from the way we had it set up the previous year too. It was like the same kind of like website and the same offer virtually. So it's like the offer really didn't change. They made some minute changes, but the offer really didn't change. The copy, the creative, like what could be going on? So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to dig into the data, right? When we talk about the call we had before on digging into data, before we just throw out solutions, let me just try something at random. Let's dig into the data and see, what does the data tell us? Can we diagnose a potential problem from the data? So here is the data. These were the two ad sets. This one at the top was the duplicate. I forgot to put in the screenshot of that, but you can see we only spent $25 before I turned it off. One lead, the cost per lead down here, $25 for that duplicate. And I turned it off. I waited for delayed attribution to come through. Still didn't come through. So here we have these two ad sets. Here you can see the aggregated column in white down here. Total of $27 per lead, total of $300 in spend. So when you're looking at this data, what would you do next? Looking at this data, where would we go? This is fun to quiz people like this on. Take your time, because this is it's a lot of data. And once you think once you think you have an idea of what you do next, go ahead and type it in the chat. New creatives. Eamon said new creatives. Could be interesting. All right. What are some other ideas? Check the landing process. What do you mean by that? Like the landing page, David? So Ravi said day of the week. Interesting. Yeah, landing. Okay, good. So David said check the landing page. Benjamin said, was it a small geo or a big geo? I'm pretty sure this was a large geo. It was like United States, UK, Puerto Rico. No, maybe it's just US only. I'm sorry, US, but it was like at least US only at the smallest, US only. And we were targeting, this is kind of a health related summit targeting older people. So I think it was 40 plus men and women US. So David said, check the landing page, day of the week, make sure everything works. Look at plugins. So Kian said, was number of link clicks to impressions the same as the previous ads? Could be the page convertibility thing, right? So you guys are kind of, I think some of you are catching on and are kind of looking at the same, seeing the same anomalies. But let's take a look now, right? Our cost per result's crazy, but look at our CPM. That's more or less in line. I don't remember, but that's not crazy. Look at our CTR. I mean, that's 1.57. That's basically kind of in line for how this would have been, maybe a little lower, but not to where this is the smoking gun. CTR all looks okay. My cost per click is halfway decent. Cost per click all. I think that, it could probably be better. Look at my cost per leads really bad. Look at my my link click to leads right here. 9.82%. That's not great. I'd like to see that at 30, 40%. But look at this. Link click to landing page view, 8%. Right? Landing page views, 9. Okay? So I've got 112 link clicks, 9 landing page views. And of those 9 landing page views, 11 of them became leads. How's that work? Right? So all of you have had wonderful ideas of, let's look at the targeting, let's look at the creatives, let's, maybe try this or try this. But part of the benefit of this troubleshooting, and let me take an aside real quick. What I want you to take away from this is not the conclusion I reached, because I'm going to be totally honest, like you may never see this situation. Right? Every situation may be unique. So if you encounter this situation again, it's worth remembering, oh, Lauren encountered this, but that's not the main takeaway I want you to have. The main takeaway I want you to have is, how do you think about this? How do I go about troubleshooting the next time you encounter a problem? How do you go about troubleshooting it? Right? How do we think about this? What was the process, not necessarily the conclusion? So yeah, Kian said the takeaway was you needed Hyros, right? Yeah. So Hyros would not have helped this at this point. So how do we think about it? Well, I'm looking at the data and I'm seeing something that is a real weird anomaly to me. Yeah, the cost per click is a little off. CTR a little off from maybe how I'd want them to be. My CPM maybe a little high, but nothing crazy. But that's wild. 8% of link clicks convert to landing page views. Now, to refresh your memory, this is something we talked about in the data call. To refresh your memory, a landing page view is basically when someone clicks over to your page and they stick around long enough for that to load the pixel. So for your page to load, right? And normally, so the link click to landing page uses, of your link clicks, how many of them stick around long enough for your landing page, for the landing page to load, for the pixel to fire, right? So what we're seeing here is 8% are sticking around long enough for that to load. That's really, really, really strange. Normally, 85% is like a passing grade, right? If I've got 85%, that's decent. If I've got 50%, that's like a real area of improvement there, where, okay, now I can work on that. And a lot of times that's an indication of your, your page speed. But in this case, I'm like, 8%, that is just ridiculously low. So although many of you have had great ideas about, maybe we look at the creatives, the audiences, this or this to me, the data gives me a clear idea of the first problem I want to, it might not be the only problem, but the first problem I really want to investigate is, why is this happening, right? What is going on there? So I knew that the pixel was firing because I could see it with Meta Pixel Helper. So the first thing I'm thinking is, all right, is the pixel even firing? Because if it's not firing, you're not going to get landing page views, right? So maybe it's not firing properly. Maybe there's an issue. So I said, let me check the pixels firing with Meta Pixel Helper. And again, that's if you load up a web browser's little Chrome extension that'll show you. I could see that it was firing. But I said, well, let me double check this further. Let me head over to Events Manager and test it. So I'll show you kind of what this looks like. If you go to Events Manager, which, right down here, there's plenty of other ways to access it. It looks kind of like an octopus. I always think about it that way. and you click over here on data sources, it'll list your pixels. Then click on the pixel that you have, the data set, now they call it, the data set that you want to take a look at, which was this one. And then over here in the menu, you can click on test events. And then right down here, you can navigate to the website and see what's going on there. And I could see, look, when I go to this website and I registered for it myself, I'm seeing a lead fire, right? So what is going on? Like it's working. So, okay. And I double checked, man. I like looking at the, on the Meta Pixel Helper, I'm like copying the pixel from here to show the pixel number. And I'm like putting them side by side, like these are the same numbers. I'm even seeing it on here, like, because if you see it here, it should work, right? You're getting those events in. Facebook's telling you, we are seeing the events from your pixel. So what in the world is going on, right? Well, I thought, let me check the allow lists. Okay, now this is something I've had experiences with before. So what we're basically exploring, if I go back here, right? For some reason, our landing page view, we're not getting the data in. So is it a problem with like our pixel isn't firing right? Because that could be a thought. Maybe we actually have like 50 leads, but it's just saying we have 11. Okay, somehow the data is inconsistently getting into Facebook. So is it a problem with the data getting in there, like, or is the pixel not firing or something like that? I was working with a client that I took on several months ago, maybe a year or more ago, and they had been optimizing for link clicks previously because they tried to optimize for like other events and they couldn't get it to work. So they just found out that optimizing for link clicks got them the best results because they could like look in Hyros and see the actual results. But Facebook wasn't showing the data. Like Facebook wasn't bringing back in complete registrations and all the other events they had firing. So I was like I'm like, what is going on? I tried optimizing for different things and I could not. I'm like, what is going on? Like the link clicks, everything was fine, but like everything off platform, it's like it didn't exist. So what I found out at the time was there's this thing called an allow list. Now, if you come in here and you go over to the settings right here in Events Manager, that's where you can scroll down and you can see a bunch of stuff. And at the bottom there, you see this allow list. You can actually block certain sites. So for like I can add any pixel to a site, right? It's just it's a snip of code that I can put in right now. So if someone really wanted to do Dark Lord stuff, you could go start like a seedy porn site and put your competitors' pixels on it and get them lots of like garbage traffic. Like you could do that. Now, Facebook gives you the tools to block that stuff. So it shows you where your pixel's firing and it gives you the tools then to go in there and say, okay, block, abcsite.com. There's also the other side of that, which is allow lists, which are allow these and automatically block in everything else. It used to only be block lists, right? But now recently, and I don't know, it could have been 3 years ago. It's all recently kind of runs together for me. But it used to only be block lists. Now they've had it where they actually have allow lists where you have to go and you have to enter in, you enter in the domain and allow that so that pixel events will be allowed for that, but for nothing else. Well, remember I told you I had this client where I wasn't seeing any off-platform data. Well, what I realized was, not this client that I'm looking at now, but the client I was telling the story about earlier. For this one particular client, I looked back and it was like they were optimizing for link clicks and there was like no data coming through. I realized that they had changed their domain, but they never updated their allow lists. So when I went in and I added them to the allow list, all of a sudden the data is coming through. So for this, back to this troubleshooting client that I'm having here, I thought, let me check the allow lists. And sure enough, when you do that, it'll look like this. It'll be like, abcsite.com and subdomains, xyzsite.com and subdomains. And so you can look and you can see all of the ones that are allowed. And sure enough, it was allowed. Okay. So I checked it, but that was not the issue because the domain we were driving traffic to, it was on their allow list. And I even checked it. I mean, I went character by character, double checking that it was entered in right. So it's not the allow list. Okay. Plus, if that was true, if they weren't on the allow list or for some reason they were blocked from getting pixel data, you would get zero data. So you wouldn't have, back to this, you wouldn't have 9 landing page views and 11 leads. You'd have 0, nada, nothing. So the fact that we're getting a few through was kind of strange. Really, really, really strange. So I went to check the allow list. Okay, that's not the problem. Well, what could the problem potentially be now? I thought, all right, let's take a look at the overview. Now, remember, we you can pick the data source, and you can, settings is where we were looking at before. Well, test events, I'd shown you that, or we could actually test the events. And if you click on here on overview, what this will show you is it'll list right here the different events, and it'll show, how many have fired. You can see the date period was actually, I prepared these slides yesterday, so this was not the exact date period of when we were encountering this issue. And unfortunately, you can't reference any date period. I couldn't go back and select any further than this. So this is not the actual time period, but this is basically what it would have looked like. It'll show how many events you've received. And yeah, I mean, I could verify that they were getting in leads. They were getting in a bunch of leads. Like you can see this one last received 40 minutes ago. And since March 4th, they've had 62,000 leads, right? So it's kind of like, okay, like they've got a lot of leads in from all these various funnels. And I could look and I could see, you can see the firing, and I could see where they're coming through. If you click on view details here, which I don't have a screenshot for, I should have probably done that. If you click on view details, you can actually view the domain that the URL and the domains that these pixel events are coming through. And I could look and see the domain that I'm driving traffic to, like it's coming through, it's firing. So it doesn't appear that there's an issue there. The data appears to be getting into Facebook, but for some reason it's like not attributed to our ads. It's really strange. Like, what is going on? Something is just bizarre. So I decided to check and see if there were any data restrictions. Remember, I said that this particular client, it was a health summit that we were driving traffic to. And I will tell you, if you go in here, let me come back here. If you go to settings right here, what this will show you is your potential data restrictions. We talked about this on previous calls where Meta's rolled out these health and wellness restrictions where for certain brands and for certain data sets for pixels, they'll categorize you as health and wellness, and then they may restrict what events get passed into Facebook. So I'm thinking, could that potentially be an issue? Now, the weird thing was, again, if they restrict it, it's going to be 0 events going through, but I'm seeing some go through. So like, why are some of them coming through? It's just, that was the bizarre thing, right? It's like the data seems to be firing perfectly, but I'm still seeing some of it come through. If I saw none of it, that would lead me to some different conclusions. But I thought, well, let me check the data restrictions anyway. So if I click on manage data sources, yeah, it shows us that we were categorized as health and wellness. I'd known that for several weeks. It's been that way for months. But if you click here where it says manage event blocking, right, this is what it shows us. Blocked is none. We don't really have, even though we're categorized as health and wellness, we don't really have any pixel restrictions. It's not blocking purchase or lead or complete registration or page view or anything, right? So, that was just I don't think that that's an issue, but it was just really weird. So I thought, let me check the site speed. And I might have done this out of order because it was a long time ago, but the exact order I checked things in, it might have been a little different, but site speed might have been one of the first things I checked. When you see that low percentage of link click to landing page views, a lot of times your first suspect is site speed, right? Remember I said 85% is pretty much what I'm aiming for, what I'm striving for. That's like a passing grade. If you have 85%, it's hard to get up to 90%, 95%. And that, so it's not the biggest area of improvement. If you have maybe 75%, 70%, 65%, 60%, then yeah, that could be a significant area of improvement to get that back up to 85%. And most of the time that happens because of a site speed issue. If your site loads slowly, people don't stick around long enough for the pixel to fire, right? So they click on your ad and your page is loading and it's loading and it's loading and it's loading. And they just say, I'm gone. I don't care. I'm bouncing. So I thought, let me check the site speed. Well, number one is, I've never seen, remember we were showing, if I could go back here and look at this, we were showing 8%. I've never seen that low ever. Ever. I don't even think, I think maybe one time I saw 45%, maybe. Like generally it's higher than that. A bad one would be like 50 or 60, right? So I've never ever seen it that low. It would have to be, I mean, just ridiculously bad page speed to result in that, right? So back to what we were looking at here. I thought, let me check the site speed. And that wasn't an issue. It wasn't great. It wasn't like a blazing fast site, but it was normal and it was comparable to other offers that I'm running that are doing fine, right? So I reached out to the developer and I said, "Hey man, like I'm seeing this weird stuff." And I might have reached out to the client, I don't remember the exact sequence of events, but at some point I talked with a developer over Slack. The developer who was building this had built this site and coded the site that we were driving traffic to. And I'm like, "Look, here's the issues I'm seeing." Well, he could look and see that the actual leads that we were seeing in Ads Manager, remember we showed about 11 leads, that was pretty accurate. They could look at the UTM parameters and actually figure out, yeah, the volume of leads I see coming from Facebook lines up actually pretty decently with what you're saying. So that means, okay, well, that's one theory down, that maybe it's doing really well, but it's just not showing in Facebook. Well, okay, that seems to not be true. It's actually doing poorly. And from basically what he said, everything's looking good. Like he doesn't see any issues. So I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll check outbound clicks. Now, a link click is any click on your ad that takes people to your destination. So that could be over to your landing page, and that's typically what it is. And in this case, that was what it was. But sometimes, like if you have a lead form or something else like that, a link click taking them to a lead form still counts as a link click, even though that's not outbound, right? So I thought, well, maybe there's something weird there. Let me just check this. I don't know, but maybe it's like has this weird thing where it's registering link clicks, but it's not really taking people through. But no, that wasn't it. That seemed to be, pretty much in line. So I kept just pulling my hair out. This is weird. What's going on? So I thought, okay, considering what's going on with health and wellness, that was my prime suspect. I'm thinking that everything that I'm looking at, let me look back at this data right here. As I looked at this data and I talked to the developer and I looked at testing events, my belief is that the data was firing properly. It just wasn't getting to Facebook in the right way, right? There was some disconnect between Facebook or between the site and Facebook where the data wasn't, it was getting into the data was getting into Facebook, but it wasn't being attributed to our ads. There was something weird there. The data was getting into Facebook, but Facebook was not then attributing that to our ads, saying, okay, this lead came from this ad, or this landing page view came from this ad. There's something like that weird. Like I thought that was, there's some disconnect there, was kind of my theory, right? So I thought maybe it's just, I've never seen an issue this weird. I've never seen 8% link click to landing page viewer. I've never seen it that abysmal. I've seen 0% when it's just broken, but it's almost weirder having some, right? Having some and not a lot. So what is going on? Well, could it be related to all this health and wellness stuff? Because it's so novel, because we were categorized as health and wellness, it's so quickly changing. Maybe there's something weird going on there. I don't know. So I thought, let me try to isolate that as a potential issue. So the client had a second pixel. Remember, I showed there were multiple pixels. They had a second pixel that had been around for years, and we had actually run ads from that separate pixel, that second pixel. Now that pixel was categorized as health and wellness, but it was also unrestricted. And then you know what I did? I created a third pixel from scratch because because that way it wouldn't have that health and wellness restriction. And I'm like, let me just start a brand new pixel and see if this gets it going. Now it was compliant in the way I did it. If you run into health and wellness restrictions or data restrictions and you just think, oh, let me just start up a new pixel, that's probably not compliant. If you're trying to circumvent their systems and just say, well, I just want to get around the data restriction, so let me start a new pixel. The way we did it was this was actually a completely different site that we were driving traffic to for this virtual event. So I thought it was justified in having its own pixel. I could make a case to Facebook if they cared, where it made sense to run this to a different pixel to this. I was told that by meta reps, The Meta rep that I met and her manager, it was like a video call rep, which are generally pretty legit, know what they're talking about. I was told that if you have an actual offer, that it's okay to create a new pixel for that, right? If it's a new offer, a new angle for that offer, or something else that would lead you to create a different pixel, that's fine. So I created a third pixel. Then I had the developer install all 3 pixels on the pages, so that all 3 of them would be firing. Now, unfortunately, the developer, he had a lot on his plate, and me getting my Facebook pixel installed was relatively low on his list of priorities. So it took him probably several days to get these pixels installed. I think also I've learned later that he had to kind of do things a little differently, because the solution they used, you just put in 1 pixel. It was unusual to put in multiple pixels. So he had to kind of figure something out, which is part of the reason it took a while. So we're sitting here and I'm super stressed again, because it's like, I got to figure this issue out and time is wasting. At this point, it's like, we've spent a week or more where we could have been running ads, and we're waiting for these pixels to get installed. So he installed the pixels, and I thought, awesome, let me run ads to these 3 different pixels, but unfortunately, no dice. I still saw the exact same situation. Right here, I had pixel 1, pixel 2, pixel 3. I ran these, and you can see from this data here that my link click to landing page view was still horrible. Link clicks, I just ran a little bit of spend just to verify this issue, and link clicks are there, landing pages are there. So my link click to landing page view was really, really horrible. So I reached out to the developer, talked to him some more. So he thought, well, I can put the pixel in a different spot. I don't know the exact specifics about what he did, but he's like, from his end, maybe he could put the pixel on there in a different way. So I thought, okay, let's try that. He put the pixel on there, a different spot in the code. And then I tried it again, no dice. That's what this one is, 1, 2, 2, 2, and 3, 2. I ran it to 50 link clicks, and again, had very few landing page views, very few, a horrible link click to landing page view rate. So no dice there. And of course, all this translated to really bad cost per leads relatively. Now this $7, at first I got excited because I'm like, I'm making some progress, but $7 is still at a very low scale, twice what they wanted. And this, that's your issue. That's your issue right there. It's going to be really tough to overcome that. Plus, look at this. How do I have 10 leads but only 4 landing page views? Explain that to me, Facebook. Like, something is going on really weird with the data. So while this was going on, the client had another ad account that we had run ads from before. It's not the primary ad account that we're using now, but I had run ads from there, year and a half ago. So I thought, let me run those same ads, exact same creative and copy and URL and everything else, and those same 3 pixels. Let me run that from the second account, because maybe it has something to do with that account. Maybe that's where the data just isn't getting back because it's an account weird level data issue. Well, I did that. And what we see right here, this is the second account, pixel 1, pixel 2, pixel 3, and I see the same scenario, a decent amount of link clicks, not great landing page views, and bad link click to landing page view rate. So I've just thought, okay, I constructed a test where I was testing different accounts, different pixels. So creating a pixel, I think, earlier someone had thought, hey, let's create a different pixel. Well, we just, verified that's not going to be a solution. And it appears not to be a problem related to the pixel. It appears not to be a problem related to the ad account. I'm testing the events. Like, I can look and go there and see the events firing. I can look in the events manager and see that it's coming through. And if it comes through in that test events, like, it has the right pixel, it has the right code, because it's showing it to you. If the code's not wrong, if the code is wrong, it's not going to pop up in that test events section, right? So it's showing up. It's saying that the code is right and that it's getting it. Like, something is really, really, really weird. All right. So it hit me. Oh, let me look at my placements. I thought maybe it's not firing on mobile. Like, maybe it's firing on the desktop, but it's not firing on mobile, right? Or maybe it's a problem with iPhones or Androids, right? There's something weird going on there. And I thought, that could make sense. What if the Pixel theoretically were not firing on mobile and it were firing on desktop, right? That could potentially be a cause of our issue. So let me ask you this. What data would I expect to see? If I'm looking at the placements, what data would I see if this were the cause of the issues? And what data would I see if it were not the cause of the issues? What data am I looking for if I look in the placements? Go ahead, pop it in the comments. Everyone's stumped because this is a weird one. And this is pretty deep, more or less advanced stuff, right? So I don't want you to be intimidated if this is all over your head. Like, I thought this would be a cool case study. All right, any takers in the comments? What would I be looking for in my placements to verify what I'm looking for? Redirect could be causing a misfire, Ken said, possibly, right? Well, what I would look to see was, let me show you the placement data. Long story short, the placement data was not an issue because if this were the problem, let me see, I might say like iPhone shows all the landing page views here and nothing on, nothing on anything else, right? What I would see was the landing page views isolated to maybe just a certain placement if that was the issue. Or I would see the landing page views missing from that placement if that was the issue, right? But unfortunately, that's not the issue because what we're seeing, a bunch of link clicks go to the Android. I said placements. I'm sorry. I didn't mean placements. I meant the devices, the devices like mobile or Android, or are we desktop or desktop or mobile? So again, yeah, 23 here. So okay, I'm seeing the issue here, and I'm seeing the issue here. I'm seeing the issue uniform basically between these, right? Now these didn't have any landing page views, but it's so few clicks, it's just not a big deal. But I'm seeing it on iPhone, I'm seeing it on Android. I did look now I'm on desktop. I maybe looked at some other stuff and I didn't think that desktop was an issue. But again, I'm not seeing any landing page views fire on desktop. So like this can't be a cause of my problems because there's not many link clicks and there's not many landing page views. So I'm seeing an issue independent of desktop, right? I could take desktop out and this issue would still persist. So it's not an issue with mobile or desktop. It's not an issue with iPhone or Android. Like what is going on? Now, a lot of people would say, well, let me go for a little bit more. Okay. At this point, I'm pulling out my hair. I have looked into a lot of stuff and this was weird. So what I did was I reached out to some smart people here in the Nothing Held Back Discord and friends of mine to pick their brains, right? And one of the takeaways again, like I don't want to just say, all right, here's what I found out in this troubleshooting. Here's my conclusion. I want you to look at the process. I want you to think about the process and how you would employ this process and the lessons we can learn from the process. And one of those is like, be humble, right? Like I'm all the time asking questions of people, and it would be easy for me to say like, oh, like I know what I'm doing. I'm this professional. I'm the NHB coach. Like I'm supposed to know it all, and to have an ego and then not to reach out to people. But I am curious and I try to be humble, and I'm like, I'm going to reach out to people smarter than I am, right? Like give me your advice, right? So I reached out to a ton of people. Steven was one of the ones I reached out to. I reached out to Isabel Burns. I reached out to Ali Choker. I reached out to Fahir. I reached out to a bunch of people who particularly understand like the data side, and it's like what in the world is going on. So lots of good people that I reached out to, right? So they gave me a few suggestions. One suggestion says, what about if you look at heat maps or screen recordings like Clarity? Or maybe we can look and we can see in Google Analytics that people are actually hitting the page. In other words, is the problem that people click and they never reach the page? Or are they actually reaching the page, but that data just isn't getting back to Facebook, right? Like what is the problem? Now, because one of the principles is like, break it down even further. Like when I start looking at the data, and let me go way, way, way back to the beginning. Well, I won't go back to the beginning, but I talked about this in the digging into data call. I like to think about it in terms of a funnel, right? I like to think about Facebook ads in terms of a funnel. From the moment my ad hits their feed till they click on, they click on see more, or they play the video, they click over to my landing page, the pixel loads, they opt in, they purchase, every action they're going to take down there. I'm going to look at every single action on that timeline, and then I'm going to look at the data points related to those particular actions. So I can look and say, okay, what is my CTR all? Am I even stopping the scroll? What is my CPM? Is it just so expensive to get in front of people? Like, is that where my bottleneck is? What's my CTR, my cost per click? Are they clicking on my landing page? What's the ratio between CTR all and CTR? What is my link click to landing page view rate? Like, I'm looking at all of these data points for each one of those points in the funnel, and I'm looking at how they relate to what I would expect to see. And so that's what I did earlier. I looked at all those data points, and I could see this junction between link click and landing page view appears to be the issue, right? That ratio, that conversion rate between the link click and the landing page view it appears to be, the main issue that I'm dealing with, at least the primary one to investigate, the weird one. And so a principle is, now let's dive even further. Okay. Is it a problem that they're not even reaching the page? Or is it a problem that the pixel isn't firing? Or is it not getting back into Facebook? Like, in that process, we can break that down further and try to isolate what exactly is going on in that conversion rate even further. So let's take a look at clarity, right? If we're seeing clarity where a bunch of people just screen recordings, like they don't even load, then that could tell you there's an issue there. Or you look at the heat maps and it shows you that the pixel never even loads. They're just going on and real quick. Then it could be, hey, maybe it's bot traffic, right? Maybe it's bot traffic that's showing up as clicks, but they're not showing up as landing page views. That could be something potential. Like, okay, that could be interesting. That's strange. I've never encountered that before, but it could be. And the other suggestion is, all right, let's take a look at Google Analytics, because if Google Analytics are showing us with this UTM parameters that people are hitting the page, well, then we know that that's not the problem. It's the data getting back to Facebook. But if we look in Google Analytics and we see these people aren't hitting the page, then we know that's the problem, right? So is the problem they're not reaching the page, or is the problem they are reaching the page, but the data isn't getting back? So I thought that was good. So I reached out to the developer, and the developer, unfortunately, did not have Google Analytics installed or Clarity or anything like that. Developers are, we are, our industry, we're people that work behind a computer, and sometimes not everyone is the most socially savvy, and the developer was kind of a little blunt about it, and he had his definite opinions about the ways to set up a site, and that these things weren't needed. And I can't really go to the team and be like, hey, Facebook's falling apart, I need Google Analytics on here, because it just wasn't going to work and time was running out. So I'm just like, again, let's practice extreme ownership. Like, what can I do? And that's maybe another takeaway, that extreme ownership. Like, let me see what I can check, because like, this is weird. Like, it's a problem with me. It's a problem with Facebook. It's something with Facebook. His in the Google Analytics and the Clarity would be nice in helping to diagnose it. But if he doesn't have it, we still got to keep moving. So he doubled, to his credit, he was a nice guy in terms of, double checking things. And he's like, look, there's no indications of any problems from anyone else on the page. Like, no customer service tickets. Like, they were running some affiliate traffic, and they were mailing some lists and things like that, and everyone was coming through fine. There was no complaints. So I'm like, okay, what could possibly be going on? And he looked, and remember, an events manager, when we look back here earlier, we were seeing stuff come through, right? And he could look at these events and he could be like, yeah, that's pretty much correlates with what the actual number is. So I think that the data is getting back to Facebook, right? So that kind of became, once he verified that, I'm like, okay, the data seems to be getting back to Facebook for some reason, but it's not attributing to the ads. Like, why is that? Well, let me go a little further. So, all right. Now, all while this was going on, I'd let the clients know what was going on, right? While we're dealing with this, because it's a limited time promotion, and I'm not running any Facebook ads. And plus, I'm not even sure at this point I'm going to be able to get it fixed. If I do get it fixed, I'm not going to be able to spend the full budget. Our results might be horrendous. So I wanted to let them know what was going on just to kind of communicate. And the point there, it's communicate with the clients. A lot of times when I'm troubleshooting stuff like this, I give it a little bit of time so that I can maybe figure it out. So then I can let the client know, hey, we had this issue. I solved it. But at this point, it had been several days. So I just said, hey, we're experiencing this issue. And I wanted to let them know I'm on top of it, right? Don't delay so much looking for a solution that they come to you first. That's bad. You want to come to them first to say, hey, there's an issue. I'm troubleshooting it. I'm on top of it. You want to earn their trust by saying, I'm a professional and I'm aware of the issue and we are investigating. So communicate with your clients. Now, the developer and I got on the phone, and he had remembered that we had done things slightly differently last year. We had a special Facebook, they have a WordPress site, it's a WordPress installation. And what they had done last year was they created a special Facebook page for that. So it could have been like abc.com/Facebook as opposed to abc.com. Now we had been this time just sending people to the top level domain, the homepage, which is what I was testing. And I remembered, oh yeah, you're right. We did have that. We had a special Facebook page last year, and I don't know why we did it last year. I think the developer didn't want the Facebook pixel on the main page or something. I don't really know why. Maybe they wanted to like see the actual Facebook registrations but for whatever reason, we had that set up. And I'll tell you this, I will say the developer, at one point when I was digging through all of this, I made him a loom, and I'm like, let me make you a loom real quick. And so I made him a loom. And then while I was making them a loom, he shot back in Slack. He said, no, do not make a loom. Write down, looms are unfocused and inefficient. Write down clearly what is going on with concise data points, backed up with data and next steps. And I was like kind of taken aback. I'm like, dude, like that's pretty direct. You don't want me to like make a loom. Like, I'm just kind of like, that's not how I roll. And he messaged me that while I was recording the loom, so I didn't see it. So I'm like, oh, sorry about that. I went ahead and recorded this loom anyway. I'm going to go ahead and pop it in the Slack because it was a Slack channel with multiple people in it, including the clients. So I was like, let me pop it in here just in case anyone else wants to take a look. And then I did follow up with what he asked for with, here's the data that I'm seeing and the data points that he wanted and everything else like that. And I got to admit, I was a little resentful because like, man, I'm not going to spend like half an hour getting screenshots together to save you like a 2-minute loom. So I just didn't do as many screenshots and whatever. And I kind of hit the high points. But I got on the phone with the guy and he was super nice. He was super nice. And once I think just sometimes Slack, text communication isn't a good way to convey tone. And some people maybe, I read things into it that weren't there. Maybe he said things in ways that weren't I don't know, but on the phone, he was actually really nice. We did have a little bit of a difficult dynamic before we got on the phone because it's like, he's pointing at his stuff and it's like, hey, everything's fine. It's a problem with Facebook. And I'm pointing at Facebook and being like, this is what I'm seeing that leads me to believe it's a problem with the site. Right. So at this point, so anyway, that's my wisdom takeaways. Be nice, right? Like whenever I communicate with people on Slack, I'm not saying you should be like me, but I put emojis into it, smiley faces. I say, ha ha, LOL, stuff like that. I sound like a 13-year-old girl. And the reason is because I want to convey tone and things like that. Right. And I can get away with that because I'm in my 40s. I've got a gray beard. Like I can like get away with seeming unprofessional because I have some professional authority that I don't need to compensate for that. If I was a 23-year-old woman from Pakistan, this is like I'm new into it. I might not be able to do that. That might look unprofessional, but for me, I can do that. And it looks personable as opposed to being unprofessional. That's just how I get away with that. But point is like, that was the situation I am. And that's how I communicate on Slack. So super nice on Slack. He was actually really nice on the phone when we got on and we had this conversation. And I'm thinking, as I'm just dealing with this, I'm like, maybe that there's something about like a click ID, and I know just enough to like not really understand that, but like maybe it's something with the click ID not getting associated with the pixel. Like the pixel's firing, but somehow it's not connecting back. What's going on? Now the developer was saying stuff like, well, iOS 14, and blocks pixel third-party pixels and Chrome and all these other browsers, or Brave is starting to do more and more of that. And it's like we kind of got in this little, it could have been a little turf war. And I'm like, look, man, I'm running plenty of offers. I didn't say this to him, but I'm thinking to myself, I've run plenty of offers, and I've never ever seen a link click to landing page view of 8%. And this is not iOS blocking it thing. It's just not happening. Like why now? Why this? That just doesn't make sense for the extent of what we were seeing. So anyway, at this point, I'm pulling my hair out. I don't know. He doesn't know. We have no idea. So I'm thinking, all right, he recreated that Facebook only page that we had before, abc.com/Facebook or whatever it was. And I launched ads to that. Hey, that was how we did it before. I'm using the copy that we had before, the pixel. I mean, everything's the same. That was one thing that was different from before. Let's try that. So I launched ads to that, and here's what we saw. All of a sudden, this was the first day, 190, $200 a day just to kind of test things out. And what do we see right here? 59 leads and $3.35 per lead. So wow, we are back in business. I tested it across all 3 pixels here. And what do we see? That all 3 pixels are now working. Let's look at this type of data right here. What do we see? Link clicks, 138, landing page views, 103, link click to landing page view up to 75%. That's still not great, but that is certainly better than where it was. And now I'm getting better conversions with my link click to leads, everything else. Now, I'll show you the rest of the data, and then we can talk some more. So here was the overarching campaign. The unfortunate reality was I only had days to run this, whereas I would have much rather preferred to spread my budget over 2 or 3 weeks, but I had to make a mad dash to the end. They had it at one point I'm spending $3,000 plus a day, leading up to the end. I ended up spending almost $14,000. Actually, remember I ran it in the other account, about $100. So we were a little over $14,000 if you factor in the other account, and we had $3.74 per lead. And that is factoring in all of the wasted spend that we had verifying all of this, so this is total in aggregate. And I would have loved to get up to the 15,000, but I was really keeping my eye. I thought I made a decision that I would rather come in at 14,000 and under $4 than 15,000 and $4.01, right? Because I just know the way the client kept talking about that lead costs, that they would prefer me to have a good lead cost and not spend the full budget. So I erred on that side, and this is what we had right here. And then you can see we had link click to landing page view for this entire campaign ended up being about 85%, right? Link click to lead, about 30%, and then landing page view to lead, 36% decent conversion. So what can we learn from that case study? I'm going to open this up to you guys if you want to, chime in what your takeaways were. One thing that was really impressive to me was the power that comes from optimizing when Facebook can see all the data, right? I'll mention it, David, here in a minute, right? So what the issue was, I don't know exactly why that fixed it. Why did going to that one page fix it? I have no idea. But apparently WordPress can be wonky, right? WordPress is incredibly powerful. It's incredibly customizable, but it can be wonky and it can be fragile and it can lead to weird things like this, where I still don't know exactly technically why that doesn't really make sense to me, why it would do that, but it did. So it could be some redirect or something stripping some pixel. I don't know. I have no idea why it would do that. But the point is, when we flipped back to those, when we flipped back to that dedicated Facebook only landing page, that was not their top level domain, but the actual page, it worked. And so then we saw that. So some takeaways I had are, this is the power of getting good data. right? When we look back, I got a $27 cost per lead, remember. Why? Because Facebook wasn't seeing landing page views, and so it couldn't optimize. See, here's the thing. If you don't have data into Facebook, you're not optimizing with subpar data. Like Facebook is still, see, Facebook is still optimizing, but what it's optimizing is it's optimizing negatively. So what it's seeing is that people are clicking to this landing page and they're not, and the pixel isn't loading. So Facebook is optimizing. Facebook's adapting to that signal. It's just adapting in a negative way, where it says, oh, this person isn't quality because they clicked and they didn't even have the pixel load. So this must not be a good site. They must not care. So Facebook's still trying to optimize off of this negative signal. So the absence of data in the Facebook world is not neutral. The absence of data in the Facebook world is a negative because Facebook will de-optimize. Facebook is trying to optimize and it's not seeing that data, so it scrambles and it tries to find things and it ends up really, really, really messing up. So that is the power. We went from instantly from $27 leads. That was it. It's not like it started off at $5 leads and it got worse over time. No, right off the bat, Facebook is with a $27 lead because it couldn't see these landing page views. And then right off the bat, once we fixed that, it was solved and we were back down to sub $4 leads. That's the power of landing page views and making sure that you have your data set up. So let me go ahead and open this up. We can just kind of all chat here, but what were your takeaways from hearing that and lessons that we can learn moving forward? Yes, Robbie, what's up, my man?
Hey, man, I want to give you a standing ovation. That was a great, great, great storytelling. Oh my God.
Thank you.
This call should be classified as some thriller or something. You should be directing a movie. You are a great storyteller.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It was not fun during the time when I was going through it, but it was nice to get it solved. And I will tell you, when you can solve something like that,
yeah.
maybe the client didn't understand it, maybe they did, but you really prove yourself as a professional when it's like, hey, this is something that was really weird and we got it fixed. So anyway, go ahead, Robbie. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no. This is really, the takeaways you put were really, really so good. This is what you learn every time. I am into software development too, and then I deal with the clients and this on a regular basis and same thing, same story. How do you communicate to tell the client when not tell the client to escalate, when not escalate? These are the decisions we make. It's, and especially considering this is like the event was in 3 weeks, you didn't have much time over there, communicate all those things. Great. I love the storytelling, but also learned a lot. This will be always in the back of the mind when anybody troubleshoots, because these are the stories which we will remember forever. So from the technical point, I can see we troubleshoot this in a typical software development. Every request made from the client browser goes to a web server, and in the big environment we use what is called as a load balancers. Basically, there is a hardware load balancer and a software load balancer. Say it tells the web server, okay, if you get 100 requests, 50 will be handled by this, 50 will be handled by this. It's called load balancing, so that if it is a 50,000, this one will handle 25,000, this one will handle 25,000. So it is optimized for that response. Sometimes what happens is people will put like a hardware and a software load balancers. It might get a conflict, even though the page view everything is happening, it is not accounted from the web server 1. Web server 2 might be responding, everything looks functional, but it's just not accounted. So we have seen these scenarios. It could be a hardware load balancer, software load balancer happening in between. Since when you said redirecting a different page started accounting for it. So it could be then somebody in the back somewhere in the WordPress or in Facebook found out, and then they accounted everything for it. So probably that would be my software development side, adding to this story part of it. Enjoyed it. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's just a weird. I will probably never encounter something like this again, and that was why I wanted to kind of hinted that from the beginning. I don't want the takeaway to be like, oh, weird, let's create another WordPress page, because you may never encounter this ever. I wanted to more be about the process, right? The process.
Yeah,
How do we
yes.
think through this, right? So, Yusuf, what's up, my man?
Yo, yeah, great call. I think the most valuable part is the process, like you just said. It's like if you come up with those issues, you now know, okay, page speed, what else? The pixel, whatever, whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just really good to know that, what to troubleshoot and to dig into data. I wanted to ask a quick question. I know it was related to before the story, but I had a question about the when it was optimizing for video views.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask quickly if it's cool. In what situation would you want to optimize for video views?
Yeah, good question. Um, so a few situations. Number one is if you had like a local business or something like that, you could optimize for video views and use that kind of retargeting strategy that we talked about. Just really pay attention to your placements. You could do something similar with, and actually, you could do something similar with you've had a higher ticket offer, right? And a lot of people will do this where they'll put out like a video view type of strategy, and then retarget people who have raised their hand and got to a certain point in the video. Retarget those people with because you can create audiences from people who view videos, and you can create audiences from the different links they view. So if someone views 3 seconds, 15 seconds, 25%, 50%, 75%, right? And up, you can create audiences of those people. So you could create an audience of people who have viewed 25%, who've viewed 50%, who've really viewed a lot of your video, who have really significantly raised their hand and said that they're interested in that. That can create an audience where then maybe you stay in front of those people, and eventually when they're ready for your high ticket service, you're top of mind. Or maybe every now and then, you've got audiences to go to and promote what you're doing. Or if you have these video view audiences are great if you have some type of sale, right? Some type of limited time promotion that you're running where you could, hit those really hard. So you could build audiences that way. I think generally for AC offers, I wouldn't advocate that. I think just go to cold traffic, try to get the sale. But for different funnels, that could be something that you do appropriately for a little bit. For like a lot of coaches and that type where you want to be top of mind and look authoritative, it certainly looks authoritative if I'm constantly seeing you on my feed and I'm constantly seeing stuff from you and that has comments and likes and shares on it. You get built up as an authority. So there's a lot that you could capitalize on there. Other than that, sometimes video views are good to do if you have a very narrow, small audience. So for instance, if you're doing some retargeting and you already have, let's just say it's an audience of people who have abandoned cart, you could do a video view campaign and get in front of them at that point because the audience is already qualified, right? They're already, it's a quality audience. You're not just going to cold traffic with, hey, buy my stuff, right? So that's good, particularly if you have a reason like a sale or some type of urgency or something like that where you can get in front of. So any type of retargeting, sometimes it's nice to have a video view campaign if you've got a really good quality audience built up. I think also for some places like local businesses, I think it really works if you're trying to, it's hard to, with a local business, a lot of times you're bound by geography, which means your audiences are going to be much smaller anyway. So if you were to say an interest of like, people who are interested in deck building or people who are interested in landscaping, it's hard to get those interests anyway. But then in a local place, that's just a small audience that you could essentially create those audiences by going to your local area with a video views campaign and then retarget those people for local businesses or restaurants or local services, anything like that you're doing. Those are kind of top of mind reasons why video views could still be appropriate. One other reason is, and this is where for me the jury's still out, some people do find, and I'm working with a client on this, where if we're testing a bunch of videos, let's say we've got 15 videos to test, 15 hooks of a video to test. We may want to test those on a video views campaign. Now you've got to set up your audiences to be really a tight quality cold traffic audience. You want to exclude warm traffic. You want to make sure you go into the feeds, really good placement. So you want to create a good experiment. But then you could test for video views and test more inexpensively than if you were to try to test for purchase conversion. One client, if we test for, our purchase conversion, we might have a CPM of $150, which means if we want to take each of those videos, if we got 10 videos and we want each of them to have 1,000 impressions for the sake of round numbers, that's like $1,500, right? That's a significant spend on a test just to figure out which one of these is better. And some maybe at a budget level that doesn't matter, right? But it could be that for this one, we're spending a couple $1,000s a day, so it's like it's a little more inefficient to do it that way. Whereas what if we did a video views campaign and we ran those? We could run those to a little more to some more impressions, but then we can see, okay, which one gets the best view rate to 15 seconds, a through play? Which one has the best hook rate, the best hold rate? Which one has the best view rate to 25%, 50%, 75%? What is the cost of a 50% view, a 25% view, a through play? And then we could compare those metrics and get an idea of, okay, these 2 or 3 videos now are the ones we're going to run with and roll out to our actual purchase optimization. That's another strategy. I think the jury's still out for that, in my opinion, but that is something that people use it for.
Oh, amazing answer. Thank you so much.
Cool. No problem, man. Awesome. Steven, what's up, my man?
Hey, to say one more thing about your video views for local businesses, because that's where I started, was local business.
Mhm.
And what we used to do, because like you said, getting enough interest on the interest, based audiences with a local business was actually pretty tough. So what we did is you were able to put an address and say radius from address, like dropping a pin on a map in Facebook and say, okay, from my business's address, I want to go out 25 miles and just leave open targeting for anybody within that bubble. And it excludes everybody outside of that, but anybody within that bubble, I want to show them this video. So if they watch this video, they're naturally going to be interested, and then we can retarget them. And that's how we were able to make it economically viable and keep traffic moving with a local business. And that's, and when I started, I converted from a local business to doing lead gen for other local business owners, because they were like, how the hell do you always have so many people in here? And that was the only strategy. This was 2014, something like that. But that's an easy way to do it. So if you're a media buyer and you want to specialize in local businesses, it's not hard to do it that way, because you're dealing with geographically a much smaller area, because they have to come into the store to get the deliverable. It's not a digital thing.
Yeah.
So that's how you would go about that. Second to that, and much more technical, I mentioned Google Tag Manager to you before. And a lot of people don't realize this, but when you set up your tracking events with the CAPI setup in Facebook, they call that server-side tagging, because in Facebook, when you just have the pixel, it has to go through like a third-party cookie thing before it hits the server where the data is set up to match, right? So CAPI bypasses that and goes straight to what's called server-side tagging. Now, what most people don't realize is when you set up CAPI, the way that it's coded on the website, because most of the time you just get an access token for CAPI, right? And you plug it into your platform or plugin of choice. So with WordPress, if you're using something like Pixel My Site, you're going to put in your CAPI token there, so you can get the CAPI tracking event set up. But the way that it codes itself into the platform changes per platform. As example, that's WordPress with something like Pixel My Site. But when you go to something like ClickFunnels, or like ClickFunnels 2.0, I was working on it the other day, you can set up CAPI on your regular site, but not the funnels themselves. You have to use Pixel only on the funnels themselves. Or the other way to do it, and if you're interested in doing it, it's more technical, but it's much cleaner as far as the readout. And Lauren, I'm mentioning this because you mentioned asking the developer about checking things in Google Analytics. The way that it codes the tracking events, and Ravi, you'll know what this is. It sets it up in the code as something called a container. And I don't want to go too deep into that, but there's a way to set up what's called server-side tracking in Google Tag Manager. So what that does is it strips away all the fluff and allows you to control how things are coded, and it's very, very direct. And the analytics show up in Google Analytics very, very clean because it's segmented that way from Google Tag Manager. I know a lot of the bigger companies and some bigger e-com stores will set this up because they're spending so much that the data matters more. And that's a much more technical way of going about it, but that's also why when you're setting up Cappy, one of the partner integrations is Google Tag Manager. You just have to dig a little bit to know how to set that up. Now, I will say this, if you don't know about it and you're at all interested in what the dumbed down version of how to make all that work, there's a YouTube channel called Measure School that will teach you all about analytics and setting all this up properly without you having to be a Ravi level wizard software engineer to make it work. And if you're having some hiccups sometimes in attribution, that's an interesting solution that works across all platforms. And that server-side tagging, by the way, is also the mechanism behind Hyros, whatever the hell you want to call it. So just since it was such a high-level call, I wanted to add that in for people that don't realize. And if you wanted to get better at just understanding analytics and tracking and setting all that digital plumbing up more cleanly, that YouTube channel, Measure School, they've specialized in it for like the last 10 years. It's unbelievable. It's all free there for you.
Is that Mercer stuff?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I know that they regularly update all of their stuff and they make playlists for like, here's what's changed now. These are the steps that you go through. So it's like a free little school there, or a free little mini course to make sure the analytics are set up.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. And I think for me, a lot of the ways I've approached that is like, I want to understand it, but at some point I think there's value of staying in my lane, and there's lots of good developers and smart people in NHB. So like tag those people, and like Fahir is great where, you can be like, all right, dude, help me out. Like, cause he can solve all the problems and everything. So good
agreed. That the whole staying in your lane. I found out about all of that because I was like, oh, that's what that is. Yeah. Who can I find to do that for me properly? Versus having to learn something completely new. But that was definitely a solution there. I'm done.
Good stuff, Steven. Good stuff. Idan, what's up, my man?
Hey, that was a great call. It was amazing to get into your mind to see how you see things and how you approach these problems.
Oh, cool.
I feel I definitely leveled up now. My question was about the video ads. Would you just like deselect the audience network, or like what would you do to avoid? Because I saw that I have it currently happening with my client, so that was crazy. I had these amazing stats, and I was very happy with it, but I never thought of checking like the placements, and it's a reward. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I think there's two ways to approach it. One could be like, let's go to feeds only. That would be your most expensive, but also your highest quality views. If you wanted to kind of go a tier down from that, there are various video placements and things like that where like stories, you could maybe add in like stories or reels. But if I were doing a video views campaign where I was optimizing for video views, I would probably only do, I'd probably only do only the feeds, unless it was a very, something that could be conveyed in a short video. And then I might also go into a story or a reel, right? But generally, I'd probably just start with the feeds, right? Because my approach there would be like quality over low cost and quantity.
Got you. Even if it's like an engagement, like I don't know, tips and these things.
Engagement.
My client does like branding videos where he shares stuff like tips, ideas, and help people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to go branding, I think that you could probably, maybe take off Audience Network and do the rest, right? Maybe just kind of see where your offending ones are. Audience Network is a lot of times garbage anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, take that off and try everything else and see where the data kind of tells you if it's just branding and getting out there. Yeah, you could probably do that. Yeah.
I see. And if I want like I don't know, to get a better quality of audience, it's better to do only feed, right?
I would. Yeah. Yeah. Because video views are for the most part pretty economical anyway.
Mhm.
So I'd rather pay more for a quality view than have a bunch that were lower quality.
Yeah. And would you use Reels for that, or only if it's a short video?
If I wanted to maximize quality, I would be feeds. If it was a short video, you could put it in the reels too. If it was like a branding video.
Got you. And
Yeah.
in any other circumstances, you wouldn't do the search results.
Um, I mean, you could always test it. Like I don't really believe in doing too terribly much video views for like that branding elsewhere, or like all over. You could see search results and see, or just take out Audience Network and plug it in and see kind of what the data tells you. Because you can look and you can see, all right, because Facebook will. You notice when we had Audience Network in there, it wasn't horrible that the videos were being played there. What was horrible was that Facebook was optimizing for that and putting all your spend
Mm.
there. So if I have some random placement where I'm getting 0.5% of my spend, probably not a big deal, right? It's wherever Facebook optimizes. But if I start to notice, oh my gosh, 98% of my spend has gone to Reels, then I'm like, is that a good thing or not? And then you have to make a decision, right? So I would just take off Audience Network if you want, go auto, and then see where the distribution lies. Or if you just want to say, hey, you know what? Let's get quality, go to the feeds.
Got you. That's perfect. Thank you.
Cool, man. Awesome. Steven, I see your hand. One quick question before we get to you. Benjamin said, question, thought on running purchase versus lead for webinar live virtual event. Yeah, that's something you can, normally what I'll do sometimes is split up my spend and do both. And this particular one, what they would do was after you opted in for a lead, they would pitch you on a product. I think it was like the recordings for the virtual event. 40, I don't know, that's 49, 79, 97. I forget the exact price point. It doesn't really matter. Point is, in that case, I've had it before where I've split up my spend and did some leads and some purchase to kind of get the best of both worlds. A lot of it depends on your client's goals, because some of your clients are like, they like hearing the cost per lead. They like hearing the volume of leads. They like getting people into their system. They're comfortable with a lead into their system that then they can have on their list that they can sell affiliate products to, that they can monetize later down the line with their back end, that they can continue to email, and maybe they end up purchasing something 3 years from now. So if that's how your client is, then, that's why I included some of the lead optimization as well as the purchase optimization. But that's how I would normally do it. Just go ahead and mix them. All right, Steven, what's up?
Hey, just wanted to share another thought about that video views thing.
Sure.
And I'm only sharing so much because this used to be my entire strategy, and I spent a ton on it. Morphing from business or local businesses to someone doing just stuff like online info products. It works really well if you're also running like social content, because and I'm going to tie this in, Lauren, with your thoughts on campaign structure that you gave us, and oh my gosh, the testing things. So and optimizing. So here we go. It's really short. When you take your videos that you want to use maybe to gain engagement, or you want to use them maybe as a creative in one of your purchase conversion ads, if you set those up as part of your content, the normal parallel that you would run to your purchase ads is you push your content out, right? You have X many posts per day, and you take your videos, and if you set up your videos to where it's very, very low spend, it's like $1 a day for a week. What you'll get back is you're buying accelerated data so that at the end of the week, you can see if you have any standout content. So let's say you posted one video a day. Each of them, you said, okay, I'm going to give $1 a day for 7 days. So I'm going to spend $50 on buying data across these videos, right? If one of them really stands out, okay, we'll put another
$1 a day behind it, but for 30 days, or even $5 a day for 30 days, but just that piece. Because what you're doing is you're buying extra data and you're buying engagement and social proof on that ad, or sorry, on that post, because then you can go into your ad and use that post to fuel your ad, and you've got all the social proof when you go to make the purchase conversion. So it's an easy way to use video views at a very low cost to get engagement, teach Facebook a little bit, see what's really standing out, maybe test a couple of different openers like Lauren was talking about, and then use that post that already has all that engagement on it in your campaigns as one of the ads, because you don't have to duplicate the ID. It's already there. It's an easy way to use the two in conjunction and test more upfront to buy the data at a lower cost.
Who would the audience be for that if you were to do that at the beginning?
Same. Whoever you think would be interested. Whoever you think would be interested. Like as example, if I were going to make an info product offer, like an AC offer, which would be like something like, I don't know, offers for introverts or something like that, right? Like you can make an offer without being on camera, and even if you hate social media, et cetera, right? Okay, well, if I know their market criteria, not how they would self-label, but their market criteria, my video is going to speak to that anyway. And like Lauren's talked about, Facebook is going to read your ad. It's going to transcribe it. Your video. It's going to transcribe it. It's going to read the copy. It's going to figure out who you're trying to get with, as opposed to having to hyper target your stuff. And it's a good way to also farm engagement for the page and social proof if you think that matters to you. But I've always found, like Lauren talked about earlier, touched on it, sometimes when you run those engagement ads in parallel to your purchase conversions, and I think Nick talked about this too early in the call, your CPMs come down a lot. But you have to run them in parallel versus just trying to hammer purchases only. And here's the thing. Lauren talked about giving Facebook the more data, the better, because it better zeroes in on who you're really looking for. And if you think about it, if it was like 5 or 6 years ago and all we're running is purchase conversion ads, then that's all the data we're feeding Facebook. We're not giving them any more data points that they can optimize around and guess people's behavior. Because remember, Facebook optimizes our content, our algorithm, based on user behavior, right? Okay, well, using video views, how can I test things and give them more data points without eating up my margins? Am I way off track there, Lauren? Am I in the weeds?
No, that thing, I love it. I think that makes sense. You know, engagement is interesting. Like, so on the one hand, I think it's something to test, to be careful of, because a few different things can happen. One is sometimes it can lower your CPM. There's something to be said about, run to the post IDs that you're running to, and it will improve your CPM. What I've also heard from some people is that it actually, even though your CPM gets better, your CPA, your cost per purchase, gets worse. The theory being that although you're getting more engagement on that ad, it's not as high quality people, and so the algorithm actually kind of will get dumber in a sense about going to your quality prospect. So I think that it is a tool. It's a tool to try, a tool to test. And I think there's definitely some merit there. I'm just not sold in like it's the magic key, right? So I would just kind of give that caution that it may potentially be somewhat of a mixed bag, to be a little careful about rolling into it. But it's definitely something that is worthwhile testing. And I try out if my CPMs are off the chain, if I need to kind of deal with that. Cool. All right. Well, that was our call. It looks like we got to all the questions, so it was awesome. Thank you guys as always. We're gonna get this uploaded. Reading offers calls. I think next we have Alan's call coming up, which should be exciting. Those reading offers calls are always really great. And Kevin posted, I was trying to think who posted in the NHB Discord, where there's a thread there about coaching calls and about courses. We just want feedback from you guys. What do you want? What do you want from courses? What do you want to know? What do you want to know from these calls? Specifically, the courses we're thinking a lot about right now. What would be helpful? And that's not just for Facebook, of course, but for Google, for CRO, for Kevin and the office, for everything. Just let us know. We really, really value your feedback. So with that, at about 2.5 hour mark, we'll call it a day. And you guys have a great Wednesday, and we'll see you next time. So see you guys.